The story begins in a terrifying world, a place so dangerous that venomous snakes lurk within the darkness. It hides in plain sight, ready to strike without warning. Here, the most terrifying monsters blend in with the innocent. This makes it hard to know who or what to trust. A toad once lured a snake, and now the snake is gone. This world is full of creatures like vampires, werewolves, ghosts, cyborgs, and puppets. They move through it like blood through veins. Our main character writes in his journal that he must always stay calm. Fear alone can draw the darkness closer. That's something he's learned over the past 2 years. During that time, he's done only one thing: survive. Suddenly, someone knocks and calls for him, Lin. It's time to hang the lamp outside and open the store. He also receives a mission from the system: hang the lamp. The reward is 1 skull coin, experience, and pure human blood. It's the first time he's seen this mysterious system. But there's no time to figure it out. He must obey his boss. As he opens the door, a massive figure appears. It looks like a Frankenstein-like creature. Lin greets the man, calling him professor, though in his mind he's already thinking he might die. That's what he thought constantly when he first came here 2 years ago. Now he's used to it. The Frankenstein drags a body behind him, gripping it tightly by the hair. Lin remembers how this professor saved him 2 years ago and taught him all his medical knowledge. Though the days are repetitive, life isn't so bad. As he opens the shop door, he feels many eyes watching from the pitch-black surroundings. But in this place, just staying alive is already a small miracle. He lights a candle and spills a drop of blood. That single action drives away nearby souls. The store sign changes, showing that it is now open. He receives his rewards from the system and is surprised. Such a simple task gave him a good return. An old, toothless woman then appears, carrying a head in her arms. She asks if he has any junk to spare. The system gives him a new mission: hand over something useless. Lin looks back and says he does. He knows who she really is, the scavenger. He quickly gives her 2 red, twitching objects. She thanks him and he receives more system rewards. Then she offers him a reward of her own. She gives him her own eyeballs. The system allows him to refuse, but warns he'll lose favor with her. Lin hesitates, then politely accepts. She smiles and walks away. Another mission completes. He goes back inside, thinking about the shop across the street, a tailor shop and a butcher shop. He knows exactly where those eyes came from. And there's a rule he always remembers in this place: never insult the ones who walk in the darkness. With the professor occupied, Lin checks the system again. His stats are average. The system describes him as a fragile but smart human who survived in this world for 2 years. Still, it notes he could die at any moment. Lin figures the system works like a game. Completing missions grants new skills and boosts. That might help him stay alive a bit longer. Just then, the professor, whose name is Bloodsaw, opens the door. He says he'll be gone for 2 days. He tells Lin to take care of the shop. The system says Bloodsaw is a lawful evil sewing monster, skilled in surgeries, runs a shady side business, and should never be provoked. Lin nods, asking if there's anything else he should know. Bloodsaw tells him that if customers can't pay with money, take something of equal value. If they refuse to pay, use the blade. He hands Lin a blood-covered weapon. The system notes it's very sharp and can cut both flesh and soul, but the more it's used, the more it hungers. Lin simply nods. Before leaving, Bloodsaw adds that the little baby in the back needs to be fed. He hasn't eaten in a long time. The system gives the same task: feed the baby. Bloodsaw leaves Lin with one final warning: no matter what sounds he hears at night, never leave the light's range. Ignore any cries for help. Lock the doors and windows. If anyone comes in, they must be killed. Lin realizes these 2 days will be pure hell. Later, he waits with the blade beside him. Suddenly, someone knocks at the door. A girl's voice asks if the owner is home. He checks the peephole. Outside, he sees a small girl holding a doll. The system presents a mission: help treat the injured doll. Lin also gets a warning: this is a wandering soul from the valley. She's searching for her mother and her doll is her ally. Anyone who tries to take the doll will end up in her belly. With tears in her eyes, the girl asks if he can heal her doll. Lin looks at the soul lamp. Its glow is weak, meaning this girl isn't too dangerous. He opens the door and invites her in. Thanks to the lamp, no one can enter without permission unless they're truly powerful. He reminds himself that souls and spirits here don't always mean harm. Most just want to live in peace. Still, it's best to never ask personal questions. The girl explains that her doll lost its arm. She looked everywhere but couldn't find it. She says the doll is her favorite. If the arm isn't fixed, the doll might die. Lin nervously agrees to help. The system warns he has lost 5 points of sanity. As he examines the doll, the system informs him that the bite marks match the girl's mouth, and the blood is the doll's. He's amazed at how accurate the system's analysis is. He gently asks the girl if she's eaten anything strange. She replies that she hasn't eaten in days. Last night she dreamed about eating delicious food: meat, hair, ears. She says it was all tasty. Her doll agrees, echoing her words. Lin's sanity drops again. He tells her that he thinks she might have eaten the doll's arm during her dream. The girl looks ashamed. The doll comforts her, saying her mother still loves her. Lin asks if she feels anything strange in her belly. She says it itches like something wants to come out. He suggests the arm isn't fully digested and asks if she prefers surgery or something less invasive. Embarrassed, she chooses surgery. The doll also agrees. He picks up the blood-stained blade. Then he explains the procedure. Cut open the stomach, remove the arm, and sew it shut. Frightened, the girl quickly changes her mind and asks for physical therapy instead. He agrees it's cheaper anyway. He then asks her whether she wants it done from above or below. The girl is startled. He tells her not to worry, it won't hurt. She hesitates, then nervously agrees. She sits down in the chair. He asks her to open her mouth wide. A horrible smell hits him. He uses a metal ring to hold her mouth open. Slowly, he reaches inside. The girl trembles in pain, but he keeps going. Eventually, he pulls out the doll's missing arm. He confirms his theory she had swallowed it, probably without realizing. He advises her not to eat unknown things in the future. He then opens a drawer. He explains that reattaching the arm will cost 30 skull coins. The girl agrees, though she's in pain. The doll, however, pleads for mercy. Lin reassures the doll he'll do a good job. He successfully reattaches the arm and earns a large reward from the system. He gives the girl a special medicine for the doll. It must be used daily for 1 week. When he applies the first dose, the doll screams in agony. It clings tightly to the girl's arm. Lin calmly states the price. 10 coins for physical therapy, 30 for sewing, 70 for the medicine. That's 110 skull coins. The girl timidly pulls out some coins and throws them toward him, saying she only has 20. He pauses, then says she still owes 90. He offers to take a part of her body as collateral. He says he'll help cut it off for free. She steps back, frightened. She finds 10 more coins and hands them over. Now she only owes 80. She says he can keep the medicine and she'll buy it next time. That brings it down to 20. She asks if she can pay on credit and return later. Lin declines. This is a small shop, no credit. He suggests she leave something behind as collateral. She could keep the medicine and even receive change, 40 coins. Hiding her eyes, she nervously asks if she can pay with something else. He leans in and asks what she means. Blushing, she looks down and whispers with her body. The girl lowers her head and says something quietly. Lin is surprised and tries to understand what she means. As he gets up and looks at her, she hesitantly asks a question. But Lin stops her. He doesn't want her body, he simply asks for her right eye. He tells her she can buy it back once she has the money. Tears fall as she agrees. The doll protests, begging her not to do it. But it's too late, the eye is already removed and placed inside a glass jar. Lin receives a large amount of items and coins from the system. He turns to her and says everything is done. He invites her to return to the pharmacy anytime. She walks away crying, saying she never wants to come back and just wants her mother. Lin finds her reaction unusual. The system then issues a new mission: help the blood puppet find its mother. The reward is 200 favorability points with the girl, 100 with the doll, and a special prize. He pauses for a moment, staring at a plate filled with items like hair and ears, things he's collected from the system over time. He's certain that little girl has done far worse things than what he saw today. But it doesn't matter, he'll talk to her about it next time. He notices that he has been earning more and more skull coins, the main currency of this world. The only problem is that he hasn't left the store in over 2 years. Looking outside, he sees countless glowing eyes in the dark. Having money isn't the issue. Maybe someday he'll get the chance to use it. Just then, a one-eyed pig walks into the store. He's the owner of the butcher shop in the Valley of Wandering Souls, a so-called friendly neighbor who is always happy to either share his prey or share you with others. Lin sees the soul lamp burning red. He welcomes the pig into the pharmacy and asks if he needs anything. Thanks to the lamp's protection, most monsters won't attack him directly. If they do, he can use the soul's energy to push them back. However, this power doesn't work well against those truly evil beings. In the end, this world has no real rules. The pig walks in, complaining about an old woman who tore out one of his eyes over some junk. He curses her and then sits at the table, demanding to see Bloodsaw. He needs a new eye and is willing to pay with fresh prey. Lin calmly tells him that the professor is away for a few days. If he needs anything, he can speak with him instead. The system issues a mission: help the pig find a new eye. The pig looks Lin up and down and suddenly remembers him. The system warns that the crisis level has reached 89%. They stare at each other for a moment before the pig decides to proceed. Lin gathers several items, laying them out in front of the pig: human eyes, pig eyes, bat specter eyes, and doll eyes. Each has its own price. He asks which one the pig wants. After considering, the pig says he wants Lin's eye. Shocked, Lin loses 10 points of sanity. The crisis level rises to 91%. He asks if the pig is serious. The pig replies, why not? Feeling uneasy, Lin removes one of his own eyes. He does it without hesitation. The system warns that his life is now in danger. He has lost an organ. Holding the eye in his hand, he says it costs 200 skull coins, and there are no refunds if it fails. The pig is stunned. It seems impossible to him. When the old woman took his eye, he was overwhelmed by pain. Yet here was a human, calmly removing his own eye without flinching. Because of this, the crisis level suddenly drops to 50%. The pig stares, realizing that Lin must have been altered by one of Bloodsaw's experiments. Lin walks over to him holding the eye, but the pig refuses. He wants his original eye, not someone else's. Lin puts his own eye back in and says he has the pig's eye. The pig is confused. Lin explains that earlier that day, a kind woman gave him a strange toy. He shows the pig the eye. The pig is shocked. It belonged to him. He asks where Lin got it. Lin explains again, saying it was a gift from a gentle lady. The pig realizes who he's talking about, the scavenger. She's capable of cutting off his head without hesitation. And yet she gave his eye to a pharmacy apprentice. Why? The pig loses 30 sanity points from the thought. While he stands there trying to process this, the crisis level drops to 20%. The pig finally asks if Lin is giving the eye back. Lin replies that he's selling it for 200 skull coins. The pig nods understanding, he agrees to the price. The crisis level drops to 10%. Lin asks if he'd like the surgery here or on the operating table. The pig chooses to stay here, he's too scared to lie on the table. Lin tells him to lay his head down and stay still. If it hurts, he's allowed to scream. The pig makes a joke but he's clearly nervous. Lin lights a candle. Then he begins heating the blade. The pig trembles, confused about why fire is involved just to reattach an eyeball. Lin simply replies that there are some blood clots and pebbles in his eye socket. Lin assures him that he'll clean it up free of charge. The pig looks unsure. The system notes a loss of 10 sanity points for him. Lin performs the cleaning, gaining experience points. But oddly, he's given blade skill rather than medical skill. No time to wonder why. Now it's time to place the eye. He warns the pig to stay perfectly still, or he might install it in the wrong direction. As he gets ready, he remembers something. Again, he forgot anesthesia, just like with the doll earlier. Oh well. The pig wakes up and sees Lin holding something strange. Lin explains it's a special glue that works with healing potions. It will hold the eye in place and ensure almost full recovery. The pig tells him to stop stalling and get on with it. Lin agrees and prepares the eye. He reminds the pig to be patient, he's a professional. With a hammer in hand, he gets to work. The pig's sanity drops by 20. When the pig sees the hammer, he panics. Lin tells him to relax, this is just the final step. If he moves, they'll have to start over and the price will go up. Lin hits the eye with the hammer once. The pig screams. Lin insists he can't stop now. He has a duty to make sure every patient leaves in perfect condition. Another hammer strike, the pig howls in pain. Then Lin suddenly stops and looks disappointed. The pig asks what's wrong. Lin says the eye is misaligned. The surgery has to be redone. Lin reassures him that the redo will be free of charge. After all, he's a kind and responsible doctor. The pig is in pain and terrified, but Lin continues. Eventually, the procedure is finished. Lin hands him a bottle of medicine, instructing him to drink it twice daily and apply another to his skin. In 2 days, he'll be fully healed. The total bill is 546 skull coins. The pig, defeated, signs the payment contract using his bloodied fingertips. He asks if he's free to go. Lin says yes. Just then, the system notifies him of a hidden mission. It's triggered by something in the pig's stomach. If completed, Lin will receive a rare ability called visual diagnosis. Lin stops him and says there's one more issue. He can't let him leave without saying something. It would go against his medical ethics. The pig, suspicious, sits back down. He says he's willing to hear him out, but if it's a scam, there will be consequences. Lin checks his pulse. The system grants him diagnostic experience. The pig grows more anxious. Then Lin looks him in the eye and calmly says that the problem might be an ectopic pregnancy. The pig grabs Lin by the collar, furious. He insists he's a man, not a woman. Lin stays calm and says that's exactly why it's a serious problem. If he had a uterus, it would require an even more complicated surgery. Frustrated, the pig throws Lin into a chair. Lin, undeterred, asks what he's thinking. The pig threatens to cut his hand off. Lin advises him to stop thinking about violence and focus on his condition. He explains that the symptoms, swelling, no loss of appetite and bleeding in the lower area, are all signs of something more serious. Surprised, the pig asks how Lin knows all that. Lin takes notes and continues with his questions. The pig mentions stomach pains that started about a month ago. Lin doubts food poisoning would last that long. He asks if the pig has attempted reproduction recently or has any strange preferences. The pig snaps at him, yelling that he better not ask that again. Lin agrees and moves on. He asks if there was any sharp pain during reproduction. The pig gets angry, demanding to know what kind of pain he's referring to and shakes Lin aggressively. Lin tries to calm him down, explaining he's only asking these things for his health. The pig finally sits back down and says he'll give Lin one last chance. Lin steps forward and says, based on the symptoms and what the pig has told him, this isn't a regular pregnancy. It's likely a mutation caused by consuming something unnatural, leading to an ectopic pregnancy. The pig repeats the words to himself, trying to process it. Lin adds that recently, he might have felt constantly full after eating. He may have noticed pale skin, sunken eyes, or a cold pulse. These could all point to possession by a parasitic spirit. He hands the pig a potion for detection. It's designed to reveal any hidden evil spirit. The pig sniffs it. Then he plunges his hand into it. Suddenly, dark spiritual forms start to rise. Startled, the pig yanks his hand out, feeling something stir in his belly. Lin reacts quickly. He hits the pig's stomach with a chair. The pig panics and demands to know what that was. Lin explains that the diagnosis confirms it. It's a parasitic spirit causing the ectopic pregnancy. Fortunately, it's in an early stage. He's lucky to have come in now. Desperate, the pig clings to Lin's leg, apologizing for how he acted earlier and begs to be saved. Lin knows it's much easier to fight an evil spirit face to face. Unfortunately, when it's growing inside someone's stomach, things become much more complicated. He'll have to get creative. He asks the pig if he's eaten anything contaminated recently. The pig admits that about a month ago, he fed on a man. He didn't fully eat him, just absorbed some of the body. Aside from that, he only eats pork and human meat. Lin says it's time to take a closer look and tells him to follow. The pig nervously follows Lin into the operating room. The pig hesitates as he lies down on the operating bed. He asks if a second diagnosis would be better than jumping into surgery. But Lin insists that acting fast is more important. He needs to confirm the presence of the spirit through surgery. The pig begins to panic. He's always been the butcher, but now he's the one getting cut open. While he's talking, Lin is calmly sharpening the surgical blade. The pig anxiously asks how long it'll take. Lin readies the blade and says they're about to start. But then he pauses, he forgot something. He quickly marks a cross on the pig's belly with a pen. Then he activates restraints to keep the pig from moving during the procedure. The pig screams. Lin reassures him the restraints are for his safety. The pig asks if Lin has ever done surgery before. Lin says he's watched his teacher cut meat, and this isn't much different. Now fully panicked, the pig begs to be let go. But Lin says it's too late, he can't abandon a patient now. After several cuts and a fair amount of practice, Lin completes the procedure. He congratulates the pig. It was a smooth delivery. What came out was a bloody, malformed creature. As Lin starts sewing up the wound, he tells the pig, probably not the best time, but he has to mention the bill. The cost of the surgery is 300 skull coins. Since it's his first full operation, he offers a discount. That brings the total to 240. The pig groans and tells him to just finish already. Lin agrees but adds that stitching costs extra, another 40 coins. He offers options for stitching material, wool, cotton, steel, or hemp. The pig chooses hemp thread. Lin threads the needle. Then he begins sewing. Afterward, he pours a healing potion over the stitched wound. The pig jerks from the sting. The system announces the surgery was successful. Lin receives more experience, and the pig gains another 200 fear points toward Lin. Looking at the parasite baby, Lin comments that although she was born tainted by evil, with proper care she might grow up healthy. But the pig is already running out of the room. Lin calls out, reminding him that he forgot his daughter. The pig yells back that she's part of the payment. Lin rushes after him, shouting that this is a pharmacy, not a daycare. You can't just leave a child here. Still, the pig disappears. Lin sighs and decides to look after the baby for now. Maybe when the professor returns, he'll find a use for her. A snack with a glass of wine, perhaps. The little creature is already shaking in fear. Lin pours a small healing potion on his eye and opens the system menu to check his status. He sees that his title has changed. He's now listed as Bloodsaw's apprentice. The description mentions that people can sense his growing cruelty and that he's slowly inheriting his teacher's twisted methods. Lin is shocked he doesn't consider himself evil. He always thought of himself as kind. He notices that he has 4 upgrade points. He decides to invest all of them in Constitution. Survival is his top priority. He immediately feels stronger. Just then, the newborn monster is attacked by another creature. Lin reacts quickly and saves it, scolding himself for forgetting it was even there. He checks the system. The creature is listed as a deformed female infant spirit, level 2. A secret mission appears. The evil spirit inside her is corrupting her form. The longer he waits, the worse it will get. There are 4 options: turn her into lamp oil, feed her to the garden creatures, preserve her as a specimen, or wait for the pig to return and reclaim her. Lin thinks the first 3 are far too cruel. The reward field just says waiting for analysis, which is vague but probably promising. He decides to wait. As he sits down, he gains 10 morality points for doing the right thing. That's when he remembers he forgot to feed the backroom creatures. He places the baby in a jar and tells her to wait. Then he rushes to the back of the store. Sweating already, he removes the lid, preparing himself. Lin pours a mysterious substance into the basement. He loses 10 affection points with whatever creature is inside, but at least it's been fed. He stares into the basement, confused. For 2 years he's worked in this shop, and not once has the professor explained what this thing is. He decides it's better not to ask questions. Curiosity here could turn someone into food. When he returns to the storefront, he finds the creature has grown enormous. Just looking at it chips away at his sanity. 30 points are gone in an instant, but what concerns him more is how horrifying it now looks. There's no way the pig will recognize this monster as his daughter. He decides to help. He ties her to the bed and thinks a little makeover will do her good. Otherwise, she'd scare everyone on the street. He grabs one of her tentacles to inspect it. It stiffens. The child becomes more frightened, gaining 10 more fear points. He tries to reassure her it's just for appearance, but that only frightens her more. Still, he's pleased with his work so far, even if it seems a bit rough. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door. He opens it and is greeted by a scorched mummy, almost completely burned, radiating intense hostility toward anything beautiful. The system identifies it as a 99% burned evil spirit. The creature speaks, clearly it wants a new face. A quest is activated to perform facial reconstruction, with a reward of 50 skull coins. Lin tells the visitor to wait a moment. He's still finishing another plastic surgery. If the mummy wants, he can observe and admire Lin's brilliant techniques. Lin tries to calm the mummy, even though this is his first time doing plastic surgery. He tells himself it's similar to sculpting clay or kneading dough. The key is balancing elasticity and pressure. Too stiff or too soft and it won't work. He needs the right touch. The mummy gains 10 fear points just watching. Lin gets to work. He slaps the creature's skin, rolls it out, tosses it, and stretches it from side to side. The mummy stares, losing 20 sanity points. He then turns to the child's head, placing it on the table to examine it. Something feels off about this whole store. The mummy, watching in disbelief, wonders what exactly Lin is doing. Lin explains that the child is very unattractive, and as a doctor, he feels responsible for giving her a more pleasant appearance. The mummy quietly doubts the method will work but says nothing. Lin accidentally squeezes the child's head too hard, crushing it slightly. He apologizes and notices a chilling human-like smile from the girl, which drains 20 more sanity points. The mummy now realizes something terrifying. Bloodsaw didn't leave an assistant, he left someone even more deranged. He starts to imagine himself ending up like one of the abominations in the back room. Hearing a faint noise, the mummy becomes anxious. Is Bloodsaw returning? He loses 40 more sanity points. Just then, Lin appears again, cheerfully sharpening a blade and apologizing for the delay. Lin asks what's wrong, but the terrified mummy bolts out of the store without a word. The system notifies him that the quest failed, but he earned 400 fear points from the encounter and 100 skull coins for terrifying a customer. Lin is puzzled. He had smiled and been polite the entire time. Why was the creature so afraid? Shrugging it off, he decides to finish the child's makeover. After some time, he finally completes the work and is pleased with the result. He always had decent hands, just never imagined he'd use them this way. Then he notices something strange, a third eye in the middle of her forehead. Before he can react, venom oozes from it. He warns her to keep that eye hidden. If she doesn't, he'll be forced to bring out the blade again. The child cries, but her fear begins to drop. The system shows that the crisis level has decreased by over 300 points. He also receives a strange lock of hair from the system, a defensive item that causes suffocation if placed near a neck. The girl cuddles a stuffed toy tightly, and Lin wonders if he went too far. Looking outside, he realizes it's getting late. He checks the soul lamp. The dimmer the light, the later the hour. When it fades completely, night has arrived. As he reaches to take down the lamp, a figure cloaked in shadow appears. The system warns that this is a demon hunter, an extremely dangerous one. Engaging with him carelessly will lead to death. Lin studies the stranger. If the first time he's seen another human in 2 years, judging by the lamp's intense reaction, this person is absurdly powerful. The cloaked man speaks. He needs treatment, specifically combat and recovery potions. The system activates a mission worth 500 skull coins. The drawback is that if Lin dies during the treatment, the mission will fail. He invites the man in, cursing his timing. As the hunter sits, he expresses surprise at finding another human in this world. The system activates a shared race link. If Lin loses the bond, he will also lose his life. Trying to remain composed, Lin asks what's wrong. The hunter shows his arm. Something dark and purple pulses beneath the skin. It's alive. The system finishes a preliminary diagnosis. He's been infected by black butterfly venom. Lin calmly tells the man, who seems surprised that he recognized it. The hunter explains that a ghost in a red dress ambushed him and used this venom. He was already in bad shape, which made him vulnerable. Once he recovers, he plans to hunt her down. Lin offers help, although in his mind he's panicking. If this guy refuses to leave, he has no choice but to treat him. He asks the system how to deal with the venom. The answer, a dangerous substance made from all the resentment in the dark world. The only way to remove it is through surgery using a rare material called ostine. Lin tells the hunter they'll need to operate. The hunter, sweating, asks about Lin's qualifications. Trying to sound confident, Lin replies that this will be his second surgery. The hunter grumbles about whether there's another clinic nearby. Lin says no, any other would have been destroyed by Bloodsaw long ago. Eventually, the hunter realizes he has no choice. The venom is getting worse. He agrees. Lin prepares his tools. It's time to begin. The hunter surveys the room. It feels less like a clinic and more like a slaughterhouse. He eyes the skinny apprentice suspiciously. Lin asks if he wants anesthesia. The hunter declines, saying real warriors don't need it. Lin agrees he's never used it either. He begins the procedure by driving the blade into the hunter's arm. The hunter flinches and tells him to calm down. Lin reassures him it was just a test. The hunter is annoyed but lets him continue. Lin picks up more tools, searching for the right one. The hunter asks why he's placing everything on his shoulder. Lin explains he's just testing for sharpness. If they're not sharp enough, it'll hurt more. He continues, saying the real pain happens when the knife goes in, not when it's pulled out. He's just making sure everything's ready. The hunter watches him suspiciously. Lin tries to sound professional, but it feels more like a threat. Growing impatient, the hunter warns him, if he stalls any longer, he'll be killed. Lin nods and brings over a small furnace. He starts heating all the tools. The hunter panics. He wants to know what's going on. Lin explains that black butterfly venom is too dangerous. If it spreads, it could kill him. The blades must be sterilized and melted beforehand. The hunter asks if Lin has ever done this before. Lin admits he's only done it while removing pig hair. Horrified, the hunter says never mind, but it's too late. Lin pulls out a wooden board. The hunter becomes nervous. Lin says it's just to catch blood and loose parts during surgery. Terrified but with no other option, the hunter sits still. He mutters that if there were any other clinic within 100 meters, he would have left already. With a manic grin, Lin approaches with his blade, ready to begin. Lin gets to work starting the operation. He gains more blade experience. The demon hunter cries out. He feels as if his body is being shredded and his heart set on fire. Meanwhile, Lin calmly uses his flaming tools. casually suggesting that if the pain becomes too much, anesthesia is always an option. The hunter is in shock. He didn't even realize the operation had already begun and admits he can't feel anything. Lin replies, a bit annoyed, that in that case the hunter should stop crushing his operating table. It's nearly broken from the pressure of his grip. The demon hunter apologizes, saying he's just too strong. He promises to compensate for the damage later and urges Lin to hurry up. Lin begins slicing deeper. Suddenly the hunter begs him to stop, complaining that he thought the pain would end, not worsen. Lin sighs. If he works slowly, the patient complains. If he works quickly, it's still not good enough. Now that he's halfway through, the guy wants him to quit. He explains that this isn't just a normal surgery, it's an advanced extraction. The cutting is fine to avoid damaging internal tissue, not for decoration. The hunter snaps and demands that Lin finish it with a single clean cut. Lin, taken aback, asks if he really means that, because a single misstep could slice an artery and kill him. He reminds him that doctors treat patients like their own children. They don't want them dying from a basic procedure. He again offers anesthesia, but the hunter just shouts for him to get it over with. Lin smirks and says not to worry. Once this is over, he's sure the guy will return. The demon hunter lies motionless, drooling, while Lin piles up various disturbing objects removed from the man's arm. Looking at the pile, the hunter speaks aloud. He thinks a devil must have done this to him. Lin disinfects the wound with high-grade alcohol, burning the area clean. The hunter begs to be released. Lin calmly says that there's still one more step to go. He holds up a bone with a small heart carved into it. He explains that it's part of the finishing touches. The hunter stares in horror. Lin innocently asks if the hunter liked the detail. The man, furious, begins to curse. But Lin effortlessly dodges. He says he's still trying to help. He insists the patient cannot leave before the treatment is complete. The demon hunter doesn't care. He pulls out his weapon, telling Lin to stop toying with him. A gunshot echoes through the air, and the next scene shows the hunter already tied up against the wall. Confused and angry, the hunter demands to know why he's been restrained. Lin explains it's for safety. He doesn't mind dying, but if he's attacked mid-surgery, he can't finish his work. That wouldn't be fair to a patient. The demon hunter scoffs at the metal restraints. He insists that if he were truly afraid of pain, he'd already be dead. Metal won't hold him. Lin ignores this and begins sanding the exposed bones. Horrified, the hunter begs for help. Lin calmly says he's just scraping the bones. He warned him earlier it would be painful. The hunter demands to know why bone scraping is necessary. Lin replies that enduring pain is part of being strong, and a true warrior shouldn't be afraid of it. Finally, the demon hunter cracks. He pleads for anesthesia. Lin shakes his head. At this point, anesthesia wouldn't work on exposed bone. He tells the hunter to just endure it for a little longer. Blade skill increases again. Suddenly, the hunter breaks free. Furious, he says he'll never trust Lin again. Lin grabs his arm. He knocks the gun out of his hand. Then he shoves it into the hunter's mouth. Lin warns the hunter not to resist again. Otherwise, trouble awaits him. The hunter quickly apologizes and promises not to move. Lin tells him that's good. If he tries anything again, the surgery will become personal. He reminds him he has a reputation to maintain and pulls out a saw, preparing for the final step. The hunter, terrified, asks what Lin has against him. The system registers a sanity loss of 20. Lin says it's time to use the big tool. The saw should take care of everything. As the saw draws closer, the hunter panics. He begins to beg for mercy. Screams echo from the house. The system registers a sanity loss of 60. Suddenly, a little girl walks into the shop asking if it's the right place to buy potions. She's confused and nervous. Before she can say more, something grabs her by the leg. She hears the hunter screaming for help, then sees Lin, completely covered in blood, standing behind him with a saw as he's strapped down. Lin asks her to wait a moment while he finishes with the previous patient. The girl panics, her fear skyrockets. The girl runs away. The system registers 70 fear points and notes that she has developed a psychological disorder due to the trauma. Lin casually turns to her and says he'll get her potions as soon as he finishes with his patient. The system awards Lin a new title, Terror of Patients. Lin is confused. He smiled and offered help, yet everyone still reacts with fear. He then notices the demon hunter trying to crawl away. Lin frowns and reminds him the operation isn't finished. They return to the table, the patient groaning in pain while Lin pats his shoulder gently. Lin finally announces the procedure is complete. The venom has been cleansed from the hunter's bones. All that remains is for his muscles and tissues to regenerate naturally, and his arm will be good as new. But the hunter isn't moving. Lin tries to wake him up. The system informs him that by incapacitating a legendary demon hunter, he has unlocked a new trait, increased pain-inflicting ability using tools. Sometime later, the hunter stirs awake, dazed. He tries to shoot twice, but quickly realizes the threat is gone. Lin tells him to relax, everything is fine. The hunter, still wary, confirms that the venomous presence is gone. It feels unreal, Lin nods. The muscle toxins have been removed. The regeneration process began with the help of the pharmacy's best potion. The only hiccup was a missing patch of tissue, so Lin added a bit of pig to fill the gap. The demon hunter stares in disbelief. The demon hunter demands clarification, shocked to hear that Lin used pig skin. Lin simply says it's unconventional but effective. If there's any problem later, he can return. The hunter is horrified by the idea of ever coming back. Lin reminds him that death by venom would have been far worse. In this world, surviving matters more than anything. The system shows that the hunter's crisis level has reached 99%. Despite everything, Lin's sincere words calm the man down. The danger level drops. He takes a deep breath and admits Lin is right. In this dark world, survival is all that matters. He then tells Lin that just making it this far is impressive. His brutal methods might be disturbing, but they get the job done. He grabs Lin by the collar and asks whether he has any real medical experience. Lin proudly holds up 3 fingers and claims he once performed a successful cesarean. Both the father and daughter were happy and even praised his work. The hunter, thinking back to how his bones were scraped, admits that he does feel healed. But he warns Lin no one can know he fainted during surgery. Lin promises to keep it a secret. When asked how much the operation costs, Lin tells him not to worry about it. It's a gesture of goodwill from one human to another. He simply hopes the hunter will stop by the pharmacy again. The system rewards Lin with 500 skull coins. The hunter doesn't seem convinced. He grumbles that compliments won't help and demands that Lin forget everything that happened. Even if they're both human, it doesn't change anything. He walks alone and won't let someone like Lin tag along. Before leaving, he offers Lin one final gesture. Opening his coat, he tells him to pick something valuable from his belongings, a fair trade for the treatment. Lin inspects the items laid out before him. One particular object catches his eye. It's a cursed revolver that once belonged to a legendary demon hunter. It's enchanted with 6 bullets that reload themselves. Excited, he grabs it immediately. But the hunter stops his hand. The hunter notices and compliments Lin on his sharp instincts, saying he picked the most tempting weapon from the collection. Lin, impressed by the weapon, asks how many monsters it has slain. To his surprise, the hunter admits that it has never killed a single one. He demonstrates by firing at the wall. It leaves only a circle-shaped burn. He explains that the guns never hit their intended target, no matter the angle. They look impressive but are essentially useless, good only for decoration. Lin tries to back out of the choice, saying he no longer wants them. But the hunter reminds him that, as a man of principle, once a selection has been made, it can't be refused. If Lin doesn't take them, the hunter warns that something unpleasant might happen. Reluctantly, Lin accepts them, planning to get rid of them later. But the hunter tells him that won't work. Because of the curse, the guns cannot be disposed of willingly, they can only be transferred through a fair trade. And since Lin desired them so much, the curse latched onto him immediately. Lin realizes this wasn't a fair deal and accuses the hunter of tricking him. But the man simply reminds him of the favor he owes for the surgery. As a parting gift, the hunter gives a warning. No matter what happens tonight, no matter the sounds or fear, Lin must not open the door. Something unusual is going to happen. Lin asks what kind of threat it is, but the hunter vanishes into the darkness, saying it's best if he doesn't know. Lin reflects on how his teacher once said something similar before leaving. Clearly, tonight will be dangerous. There's still about 30 minutes before full nightfall, and no more visitors should be arriving. He glances at the child creature on the ground. It has already reached level 7. At this rate, it's going to become difficult to manage. He tries using the cursed revolver. As expected, it misses entirely. Still, the fear it causes is effective. He continues shooting to scare the creature into submission. Just then, the soul lamp begins to flicker. Lin quickly shuts the door and exhales in relief. With the lamp now off, a dangerous phase begins. Now anyone, even without his invitation, can enter the house. The system activates a new quest, Sleepless Night. The goal is to survive until morning. The reward is 500 coins and a mysterious prize. Inside his room, Lin hides under the covers, weapons close at hand. He's ready for anything. It's now midnight and someone is already knocking on the door. A familiar voice calls out, claiming to be Bloodsaw. It says a malevolent spirit is chasing him and begs for help. Lin is caught off guard. Could the professor really be back? He cautiously approaches the door. Then he suddenly attacks it with his weapon, just in case. The voice behind the door shouts in protest. But Lin stays firm. His teacher would never return at this hour. While they argue, a sound comes from outside. Lin leans in to listen. Suddenly, hands burst through the door, grabbing him and draining his sanity. He fights back, struggling to free himself. In desperation, he uses the cursed hair from the malevolent spirit, which finally forces the hands to retreat. As the hands pull back, Lin wonders if they were even alive, but doesn't take any chances. He deals the final blow, defeating what the system calls the Deceiver of Flesh. He earns 100 experience points. He breathes deeply. He survived this encounter. But he notices something disturbing. The attack occurred exactly at midnight. The system issues 2 urgent warnings. A root-level monster is now approaching, and the crisis level has reached 100%. Lin hurries back to the doors. He suspects this is the creature the warnings were referring to. Suddenly, a massive hand appears and reaches out for him. Lin strikes at it with his knife. Then he catches a foul smell in the air. He turns. 2 huge, glowing eyes stare at him from the darkness. He retreats, but the eyes follow, pressing right up against the door. The heartbeat of the monster is deafening. Lin hears a soft licking sound. It's oddly cute at first. Then the monster's tongue slides across his face. That's definitely not cute. He loses 40 more sanity points, but forces himself not to panic. If he does, he knows he'll be devoured. The creature then softly speaks, saying it has found the doctor and complains of a toothache. Lin is stunned. It came here not to eat him, but to ask for dental treatment. Trying to stay calm, he informs the creature that the clinic doesn't accept patients at night. That's the rule. But the creature becomes aggressive, threatening to devour him if the door isn't opened. With no choice, Lin opens it. He greets the monster politely, hiding his fear. The system analyzes the creature, its race and abilities are unknown, but it confirms a dental issue. The monster groans in pain, saying it hasn't been able to eat. Lin offers to help. After all, a toothache isn't hard to treat. He reassures himself that this is just another patient. As he nears the creature's massive jaw, the system activates a new quest: treat the toothache. The reward is 1,000 coins, 50 favor points with the unknown being, and no penalties. But Lin isn't comforted. He knows the only reason there are no penalties is that if he fails, there won't be anything left of him. He readies himself. He'll have to rely on his medical skills once again. It's dark inside the monster's mouth. The creature suddenly pulls out its own eye to use as a light source for Lin. Thanking him, the beast helps Lin see clearly. Inside the mouth is a horrifying sight. Rotting remains of countless creatures are decomposing between the massive teeth. Inside the monster's mouth, Lin finds something unexpected. Hidden among the decayed remains is a legendary lance, damaged but still intact. It radiates sacred energy and clearly doesn't belong to this world. A weapon from another realm, blessed with divine power and particularly effective against demonic or corrupted beings. Lin notices it resembles the demon hunter's weapons. The creature urges him to remove the lance. As Lin looks deeper into the grotesque interior, he sees remnants of previous healers. Demon eyes, cursed healer limbs, pieces of doctors. Some even include organs like a cursed eyeball, labeled as once belonging to a doctor. It becomes clear. Others had tried to heal this creature in the past, but being cursed entities themselves, they couldn't handle the sacred energy of the lance. Lin, being human, believes he might be immune to its effects. That hope disappears when he touches it. His finger turns purple instantly. The giant creature turns and stares. It's too late to retreat. Lin seizes the opportunity and begins pulling the lance out. Tentacles emerge to assist him, and together they manage to remove the lance. He gains 20 favorability points. But the pain from the cursed contact remains. Lin realizes if he panics now, he's finished. Pushing through the fear, Lin reassures the monster that he'll take care of everything. He ignores its terrifying appearance. He rushes back to the shop. There he gathers several tubes of medicine. Then he returns to apply them. He diagnoses that the pain isn't from an ordinary dental issue, but from lingering sacred energy embedded in the root of the tooth. The amount of blood makes the task difficult. He pauses, wondering how he's supposed to get deeper inside the creature's mouth. At that moment, he notices a tentacle. Calmly, he says that the tentacle is needed for pain relief. Then he slices it off without waiting for approval. The monster yells in confusion, demanding to know what he's doing. But Lin has already loaded the syringe. He taps on the floating eyeball to get more light. He starts picking at the tooth, trying to squeeze deeper into the tooth. Realizing he needs better tools, he grabs a skull and uses it to drive the stake deeper into the root. The creature flinches in pain, but Lin tells it to hold on a little longer. Eventually, the pain subsides. The monster admits that just moments ago it was considering eating Lin, but now it feels much better. Lin advises not to think about that. The medicine is working, but the job isn't done yet. He now needs to clean the teeth and complete the restoration. He asks for a bucket, which the creature obediently fetches. Lin rinses out the infected area and requests some steel to patch up the tooth. Unfortunately, he doesn't have enough. To solve the problem, the monster swallows Lin and sprints off. In the next moment, they arrive at a massive metal door. Lin immediately realizes the issue. The door is made of iron, not steel. Undeterred, the creature opens its mouth and fires a laser blast, melting the door completely. Inside, they discover a steel marionette, a powerful and heavily armed automaton with high combat capabilities. Lin exits the creature's mouth and watches the scene unfold. He recalls that a marionette like this once caused chaos in his shop. It took his teacher 10 hours of fighting to drive it away. This time, the creature sticks out its tongue and crushes the steel puppet with ease. Then, it leaps and finishes it off with a devastating blow. Lin is stunned. He can't even gauge the power levels of either of these beings. The gap between them is massive. The creature asks if that was enough. Lin nods quickly and requests assistance repairing the tooth. Back in the shop, Lin activates his tools. The teeth are sharpened to perfection. The creature lifts Lin gently, smiling with satisfaction. He's drenched in sweat but relieved. It earned him 11 skull coins and another 50 favorability points. Now fully treated, the creature is in a good mood. Lin offers a long-term oral care service, a type of dental maintenance. The creature doesn't understand what that is, so Lin explains that it's a regular treatment plan to keep teeth healthy. Curious, the creature agrees to a free trial. Lin climbs into her mouth once again, starting a new cleaning mission. Inside, he scrapes away old corpse remains, rotting flesh, and everything else that doesn't belong. He manages to gather quite a collection of human debris. On the floor nearby, he sets down a black bucket. The creature asks about it. Lin explains it's a special black slime that will sterilize her entire mouth and leave her with a fresh, pleasant scent. The creature is amazed and opens her mouth even wider. This earns Lin another 20 favorability points. He jumps right in, scrubbing everything thoroughly while the monster holds the bucket, assisting as instructed. Another 20 favorability points follow. Lin checks in asking how she feels. She beams, flashing her polished, gleaming teeth. Another 50 points are added, she's clearly pleased. Lin then suggests becoming a lifetime member of his clinic. She happily agrees. He asks for her name so he can set up a membership record and offers special gifts on her next visit. The creature doesn't know what a name is, so Lin explains. It's what others use to refer to you. She says she has none. He offers to name her Yahello. She accepts. In gratitude, she gives him a few gentle licks. The system rewards Lin with a new title, Root Namer. He is now the first human in this world to ever give a root creature a name. Along with that, he gains new affinities and the ability to remove curses. Yahello carries him back to the shop, full of joy, and leaves him at the door. As soon as he steps inside, Lin collapses to the ground, shaking. He whispers to himself that if not for his strong mindset, he wouldn't have made it through the night. Back inside the shop, Lin checks the system and sees he now has 8 attribute points to allocate. His profile has also changed, mentioning that he's someone who has already caused fear and pain to a poor demon hunter. He knows exactly what to do. Strength and agility won't help him much against the monsters in this world. Intelligence isn't a priority either, since he can rely on the system for analysis. So he puts everything into Constitution. In a place like this, survival is what matters most. He also inspects his new skill, Limited Curse Removal. It removes a curse for 24 hours, can be used on only one target at a time, and has a cooldown of 12 hours. He has an idea. If he uses it on the cursed pistol, maybe it will become a true legendary weapon. He activates the skill, removing the curse from the pistol. Excited, he tries it out by firing at some bottles. But he misses everything. The system informs him that his weapon proficiency is 0. He realizes that removing the curse didn't make him a good shot. Disappointed, he sets up a bottle target by the window and continues practicing. He gains a bit of experience, but skills take time to build. Suddenly, one of his stray shots causes a loud scream outside. Someone yells, demanding to know who attacked them. The system informs Lin that he accidentally hit a level 75 creature, a being known as the Feeder of the Night Corruption. Panicking, Lin boards up the windows with planks and hides everything. The creature outside continues to shout, looking for the attacker. Lin dives into bed. He's shaking in fear. Despite everything, Lin manages to sleep and wakes up the next day. The system rewards him with 500 coins for surviving the night. It lists his accomplishments. He defeated a monster, injured another, psychologically traumatized multiple patients, and still managed to wake up feeling positive. He has now reached level 6 and unlocked the system shop. The system also informs him that once he reaches level 10, he will be able to choose a profession. Lin notices something crawling onto his bed. He instinctively fires a few shots, this time improving his proficiency a little. Then he realizes it's the little girl. Though she looks cute, those evil tentacles are still very present. He instantly gains 20 fear points toward her. It's no surprise he felt someone climbing on him last night. Out of curiosity, he checks her level. It's already level 10. The system notifies him that because he has reached over 1,300 fear points and 200 taming points, he now qualifies for a new mission, Growth of the Child's Spirit. This means he can directly influence her development. He complains about this responsibility. Why can't the creature grow on its own? Then it clicks, fear is the reason she hasn't attacked him yet. So to keep her from becoming a threat, he must maximize fear. He picks her up, looking innocent and harmless in his hands. And he begins stretching her limbs, calling it a daily adjustment. Her fear continues to rise. Without asking permission, he modifies her form, stuffing her tentacles into her mouth. After a flash of light, boom, she transforms back into a normal-looking little girl. He even adds some cute tails for good measure. The system confirms that this new form will significantly impact her growth. Proud of his work, Lin remarks how using just tentacle material, he managed to craft some adorable ears. He instructs her to stay in this form and never return to her tentacled shape. The system informs him that while the physical transformation is complete, her personality settings still need adjustment. Smiling slightly, Lin says it's time to give her a proper education. Next, he adjusts her cerebellum and selects her personality type. He chooses a blend of sweet, obedient, and strangely murderous. The system lists her psychological traits as virtuous, cute, and morbid. Lin sighs, why is the third trait always something terrible? He asks the system if he can tweak it further. The system says only 2 personality changes are allowed at this stage. He pats the girl on the head, promising to remove the dangerous traits later. For now, this will do. The girl, exhausted from all the changes, goes to sleep. Lin tidies up and practices his aim a bit more. Then he places a candle outside. Then he sits down and opens the newly unlocked system shop. He expects to find some great items. He's hoping to buy clothes for the girl, maybe something themed like a 9-tailed fox or a big shield. Instead, the store has items like slime mucus, a money-attracting charm, baby diapers, a growth elixir, magic meat blocks, and succubus perfume. He's unimpressed. He tries to refresh the store, but the system says the inventory only updates at 5 in the morning. Eventually, he decides to buy the toxic slime, thinking it could help with potion making. Then he sees the unlucky cat, a charm said to bring financial fortune. He tells himself he's lucky. Then he buys it for 200 coins. Looking at the diaper, he glances at the girl. Maybe he'll need that too. One by one, he buys more and more items, including the growth elixir, which helps speed up healing. Lin feels satisfied with the elixir, finally, something actually useful. Today is also the day when the supplier comes to restock goods, so he prepares to refill his inventory. As expected, the old lady arrives with her usual question, asking if he has anything useless to give away. The system gives him a task, and he hands her a bag filled with strange items collected yesterday. Surprised, the old woman asks how he came across so much material. Lin offers to help her load it onto her cart. Mission complete. The old lady pauses when she senses the presence of a root-level creature from within the bag. She's impressed. Lin casually explains that yesterday he had to deal with such a creature, and that the items came from inside its mouth. Shocked, she asks if he isn't afraid of dying. She had assumed he was just an ordinary human, but clearly he's not. He responds that he was just doing his job. No matter who enters the shop, he treats everyone equally. She acknowledges his bravery and tells him that last night, 3 root-level abyssal creatures were nearby, along with a demon hunter. She warns him not to get involved with any of them, and adds that the nearby villages were wiped out by those monsters. Lin mentions he met the demon hunter himself yesterday. She suggests maybe that's why the valley wasn't attacked. Lin replies that the hunter actually seemed kind, he didn't come across as cruel. The old lady looks at him baffled, wondering how anyone could describe that guy as cute. Still, she's impressed by Lin's courage and professionalism. His reputation increases. She reflects aloud, saying there are no normal beings in this world, especially those who seem normal. Before leaving, she tells Lin the items he gave her are too valuable to digest quickly. One particular item she picked up, she decides to give back to him. It's a demonic heart. As he touches it, Lin loses 10 sanity points. The item is identified as the heart of a faceless demon, a cursed object that can connect to a target's heart, but only if fed with large amounts of fresh blood. The old lady explains that if Lin ever wants someone to die, he just needs to focus on them while holding the heart and unleash his most vicious intent. He knows immediately this item is nothing ordinary. After she leaves, the supply carriage arrives, delivering new goods. Items are exchanged. Just then, someone knocks at the door. Lin opens it and freezes. Standing there is a beautiful girl with an unsettling aura and an unnaturally perfect body. She enters the shop, commenting on how impressive it is. The system immediately warns Lin that she is a bloodthirsty spirit. She drains victims slowly, and although seductive, she is deadly. The system urges him not to fall for her appearance or charm. If he does, he'll be dragged into a living nightmare. Lin remains composed and asks what brought her here or what service she needs. She replies casually that she just moved nearby, and she's stopping in to greet her neighbors. He welcomes her politely. Some creatures are so powerful that the soul lamp doesn't work on them, and this seems to be one of those. He offers her a seat and she thanks him. Lin knows that if she truly wanted to harm him, he wouldn't be able to stop her. So the best move is to treat her as a guest and try to build a connection. The system issues a mission. Survive for 30 minutes, keep sanity above 0, and ensure her malice level does not reach 100%. He realizes it's almost the same as last night's survival challenge. Could this woman be a root-level monster? She suddenly points out that Lin doesn't seem like someone native to this place. Then she asks if he's afraid of being eaten by an unfriendly customer. Lin immediately loses 10 sanity points. It was quiet. He admitted he felt a bit afraid, but reminded himself that being a doctor means saving lives. If someone became his patient, he would take care of them no matter what. She stood up, intrigued, then asked him a strange question: what would he do if someone wasn't his patient? The strange, seductive monster leaned closer and whispered in his ear, suggesting she might devour him and drain all the fluids from his body. The tension spiked, nearing a dangerous level. But Lin stayed calm. He calmly told her that such a thing was impossible. He believed someone so beautiful on the outside must also have inner beauty. A girl with such grace deserved a refined and noble experience, not something crude or violent. She stepped aside, amused. He certainly had a way with words. The tension dropped a bit. She sat down and asked if he truly found her beautiful. He responded sincerely. But suddenly she opened her monstrous mouth, and giant worms poured out. Lin lost some of his mental stability. She crept closer, repeating the words about being beautiful. The tension rose again, almost critical. As she came dangerously close, Lin realized the only way to break her dark persona might be a kiss. So he leaned in without hesitation. So he kissed her, swallowing the worms in the process. It was messy and suffocating. She was left speechless, mouth agape, shocked and confused. The tension dropped by half. He apologized, claiming her sudden transformation stirred something in him. He said he found her aesthetic truly appealing. She didn't understand. He clarified, he always admired girls with good dental hygiene and mouth tentacles, especially sticky, gummy ones like hers. To him, her beauty was as captivating as moonlight. She was stunned, something wasn't right about him. He hadn't panicked when seeing her true form. Instead, he was calm and even seemed impressed. She tried to cover her tentacles, flustered. Lin was confused by her reaction and asked what was wrong. She revealed her sharp teeth and asked if he didn't claim to like people with good oral hygiene. Things weren't improving. The tension started climbing again. Lin approached and examined her teeth closely. He praised her again and insisted on giving her gentle oral care. She seemed caught off guard. Later, she stood in front of a mirror while Lin asked if she felt her breath was fresher. She stayed quiet, staring at her reflection. He touched her shoulder gently and complimented her again. she was clearly unsettled. She had no idea what was happening or what this man really was. Any other human would be screaming in fear, running for their life, maybe even wetting themselves. But this guy, he wasn't scared at all. In fact, he seemed excited to care for her mouth. She decided to drop the small talk. She came here for a reason. She asked if he had performed surgery on a pig-headed creature the day before. The tension surged again. He admitted he had. Panic rose inside him. Was she here for revenge? She asked if he had taken a child from that creature's belly. He remembered the strange incident and asked who she was. She revealed she was the mother of that child. Her form started twisting again, becoming more monstrous. Lin tried to calm her down. He asked what her connection was to that demon pig and his child. According to the pig, everything started a month ago. The monstrous woman explained that the little ghost-like being was actually a part of her, a fragment that had broken off. She came now to take her child back. She was eager to see what the child had become, hoping the child had inherited her traits of murder, hatred, and chaos. She expected her daughter to grow into a nightmare. Lin was horrified. If she saw the child's current form, she might just kill him. Lin stopped her and asked if she was sure the child was hers. If so, the pig-headed creature would need to give a proper testimony. She agreed and said she would provide that testimony herself. Then, opening her mouth, she pulled out the pig's skull. He had been eaten. Lin's sanity took a heavy hit. She began circling him. She demanded the child. If he handed her over, she might spare his life. Lin agreed, but warned that the child might not be what she expected. At that moment, the girl's voice called out. The monster rushed toward it eagerly. Lin begged her to stop, but she didn't listen. She expected to find a terrifying distortion, a being of pure malice. Instead, she found a sweet, radiant child. The little girl smiled warmly at her. She turned to Lin in disbelief. He confirmed that this was the baby he took from the pig's belly. She couldn't believe it, it made no sense. To confirm, she pulled out a tentacle from her own head and tossed it toward the child. It wrapped around the girl's leg. At first, the child was scared, but then the tentacle fused with her body. That was when the monster realized it really was her daughter. Lin acted surprised too, though it was all part of his plan. The system informed him that he had completed the first part of raising the child, and her worldview had been shaped according to his design. The girl now had a taming level of 351 and a malice level of 591. Lin found these new levels fascinating. He gestured toward the girl. The monster stood in shock, watching as the child followed his directions perfectly. It seemed the taming system worked well. The only issue was that this might not be good for the child herself. Lin picked her up and praised her. He told the monster that if she truly believed this was her daughter, she could adopt her right now. The little girl called her mommy. The demon was shaken. The girl came close and even kissed her on the cheek. Her mental state collapsed again. She couldn't understand how such purity came from her. She thought maybe this was just a disguise. Maybe the child was pretending, just like she herself often took on attractive forms to lure prey. There had to be something monstrous underneath. But the child was just being sweet and innocent. She lost more sanity. Eventually, the monster fell to the ground. She mumbled about a corrupted soul fragment. This was supposed to be a twisted being. How could this have happened? Lin asked if she was okay. She snapped, blaming him. The tension surged again. The creature unleashed a furious aura. But Lin quickly placed the adorable child in front of her. She stopped. The girl got closer and even licked her. The tension dropped. The system issued a new mission. Make the mother accept that this child is hers and erase all hostility toward him. Lin muttered about how strange these missions always were. But he knew that winning her over depended entirely on the child. He encouraged the monster to look at the girl again, so healthy and happy. He said she should be proud. The monster asked a difficult question. If his own child was born as a creature, would he truly be happy? He answered without hesitation, of course he would. She remembered that he was the same strange man who showed affection even when she appeared in her monstrous form. So naturally, he'd be happy. Still doubtful, she transformed into a hideous horse-faced version of herself and asked if he'd be just as happy if his daughter looked like this. He replied that if she had such an appearance, he would love her even more. She didn't understand, it made no sense. She then accused him of changing her daughter. Lin interrupted her. He asked if she truly wanted a corrupted, violent creature for a daughter, or if deep down she had always longed for someone sensitive and sweet. The little girl called her mommy again and even blushed. Lin gained extra comfort points. He continued, saying that deep inside her heart, she wanted a child with a pure soul. But as a creature of darkness, bound by her kind's traditions, she had never allowed herself to admit it. She screamed at him to stop speaking nonsense and tried to attack him again. But he raised the child in front of her. The girl smiled with pure joy. And once again, the monster fell to the floor. Lin grinned to himself. He now knew exactly how to handle her. Lin tried to reason with her. Deep inside, she had to know he was speaking the truth. But she told him to stop. She'd had enough of his rambling. Still, he pressed on. He said she couldn't hide it anymore. He noticed how, when in her human form, her posture, her movements, and even the way she looked at people were filled with natural charm. These weren't things that could be faked. He believed that deep down she truly wanted to be beautiful. She blushed but still came at him, ready to strike. He caught her wrist and calmly asked her to listen. He recalled her saying that she used her monstrous form to lure prey. but pointed out that humans were very rare in this world. For someone like him to fall for her was already special. He said that both of her forms attracted him equally, but that wasn't the point. If she had assumed such a form in a world without humans, then perhaps it wasn't to hunt, but because she herself was searching for beauty. She was speechless. The tension dropped drastically. He told her that even as a dark spirit, seeking beauty wasn't something shameful. To him, she was beautiful not just on the outside, but also because she radiated a warmth, a femininity, more human than most. The tension decreased even further. He suggested that maybe she got too attached to the child. That's why the little girl born from her was so adorable. Of course, Lin was lying through his teeth. The child was cute because she represented the purified side of the demon's soul. He decided to double down. He asked her how a mere human like him could possibly transform a creature of evil into such a sweet and beautiful daughter. That was clearly impossible. He pretended to act modest, claiming to have gained his charm from experience. She blushed even more. He gently pushed the child toward her and told her to accept the gift that had been sent to her from above. Who could possibly dislike such an innocent child? The demon woman came closer, still unsure. Lin asked what she thought now. She replied that maybe, just maybe, he had a point. With that, the mission was marked complete. He had survived for half an hour and earned many rewards, coins, items, and a 1% increase in attraction from all women. Lin handed over the child and told her to let go of her dark obsessions and embrace her daughter. The woman now looked much more human, more like a cool alternative girl with tattoos all over. Lin encouraged her to stop hesitating and take her daughter. She held the child and the little one gently licked her. Overwhelmed, she said she never imagined what it was like to be a mother. The feelings of affection and joy were new to her. She admitted she didn't want to feel them, but somehow, she liked them. Lin explained that this was how real joy felt. It might be unfamiliar, but that was normal for a first-time mother. He compared it to a first intimate moment, strange and uncertain at first. She shook her head in disbelief and called him a smooth-talking demon. She was sure he had changed her daughter during their time together. Then she added, since they were neighbors, one day she might feel tempted to devour him in the middle of the night. The little girl gave her another loving lick. The demoness turned to leave, warning him she'd be back. Lin told her to stay safe and that she was welcome anytime. He sank into a chair, relieved. He realized he seriously needed to improve his combat skills. If something like this happened again, he might not be so lucky, and with her possibly visiting him during the night, he had to prepare. At least the professor was returning that night, which gave him some comfort. Then the system alerted him that he had acquired a special ability. Infectious Aura, a passive skill that increased his success rate when persuading others and reduced their hostility toward him. Just as he activated the skill, someone knocked at the door. He got serious and opened it. Standing there was a skeleton-headed man with a powerful creature behind him. This was the Black Knight, a warrior with incredibly high combat power and a relentless desire to fight the strong. Lin quickly realized this was another elite-type boss. The knight asked him to provide combat enhancement potions and promised a worthwhile reward. The system gave him a task: prepare enough suitable potions to satisfy the knight. Lin welcomed him with flair, claiming that his shop was the best in the entire Valley of Souls. The knight pointed out that this was probably the only shop within hundreds of miles. Lin explained that his competitors had closed because his potions were just that good. He laid several potions on the table and asked what kind the knight wanted. The strength potion was a top seller. The knight tried it, but he immediately slammed the bottle down, calling it trash. He claimed its effect on his power was pathetic. The tension began to rise. Lin tried to calm him and offered another one, the maximum tier berserker potion, which greatly boosted power but sent the user into a berserk state. The knight took it and drank. Lin thought this one couldn't fail, but then slam another rejection. The knight said that potion was only useful for weaklings. Each potion Lin offered next was rejected. Tension hit 20%. Then 30. Then 40. Finally, he showed the best potion he had. Even that only got a comment that it was inspired, but nothing impressive. Tension rose to 60%. The knight was getting furious, clenching his fists. He accused Lin of wasting his time and having no decent potions. The crisis was now at 91%. Lin realized he was about to be attacked. The knight reached for his sword, 97, 98 on the crisis meter. Lin quickly asked for just a moment. He claimed to have one potion left that would surely satisfy the knight. It needed to be made fresh. The knight asked what kind of potion it was. Lin responded that if it failed, the knight could go ahead and cut him down. The knight agreed, giving him 30 minutes to prepare it. Lin decided to make a critical strike potion, a rare formula from the system that drastically increased the user's critical attack rate. It had minor side effects, though he wasn't sure what they were. Fortunately, he had just received all the ingredients earlier that day, including a rare piece of meat from a high-level root creature, a reward from an earlier mission. He tried to recall how the old blood saw prepared potions. Then he got to work burning herbs, throwing powders, mixing in slime mucus, some vampire teeth and other strange things. He stirred it all in the cauldron. Eventually, he produced a batch of glowing potions. He placed one before the knight, confident this time. The knight asked again, was Lin sure this was the best he had? Lin nodded, but now everything depended on whether it would actually work. Lin didn't know what the outcome would be. The knight opened the potions. It had a terrible stench, but he could already feel a strange power rising in his body. He held his nose and chugged the entire bottle. Lin watched in silence. The knight smashed the bottle and shouted in delight. This was the power he had been searching for. He felt stronger, like something wild and primal had awakened inside him. He had never experienced anything like this, not even in the harshest battles. He demanded to know what potion this was. Lin called it his shop's special critical attack potion, made only for someone like him. The knight was shocked to find such quality in a place so remote. He was confident he could defeat the demon hunter with this. Lin warned that there might be a small side effect, nothing serious but something to keep in mind. The knight laughed it off. With this kind of strength, who cared about side effects? But just then, a gust of wind came through the door. A sudden gust of wind blew his hair away, and the knight went bald. He noticed Lin's shocked face and asked what was wrong. He flexed his new shining muscles and said it was worth it. Lin, still stunned, stammered, trying to respond. He could only manage to say patient. The side effect had finally shown itself. At first, the Black Knight claimed he felt nothing, but then he reached up, touched his head, and suddenly froze. Both he and Lin stared in silence. He realized his hair was gone. Dropping to his knees, he asked if this was the side effect Lin had mentioned earlier. The silence grew heavier until the knight burst forward, furious, ready to attack. Lin quickly reminded him he had said earlier that he wasn't even afraid of death. So what was the big deal about losing some hair? He even tried to cheer him up by saying he was now the strongest bald warrior out there. A little price to pay for such immense strength. The knight stood in conflict. He reasoned that, as a warrior, he shouldn't care about his looks. But his long hair had really suited his dark, mysterious aesthetic. Still, the power from the potion was undeniable. He felt nearly twice as strong. After a moment, he went over to the mirror and struck a heroic pose. He decided baldness was fine, true strength mattered more than appearances. But as he stared at his reflection, he noticed something odd. His bald head wasn't just smooth, it was glowing. He pointed this out, wondering why his head now looked like a shining lamp. Lin explained that the side effect probably gave him a unique and radiant appearance. The knight, still covering his glowing scalp, asked how many more of those potions Lin had. Lin replied that he had 10 more, including the one already used. Without hesitation, the knight demanded to take all of them. He didn't care about the side effects anymore. He even threatened Lin not to stall. Soon after, he stormed out of the shop, head gleaming under the light. Elsewhere, the knight arrived on a battlefield. He dismounted, standing face to face with his target, the demon hunter. The hunter mocked him, saying he hadn't changed at all since their last encounter decades ago. But the knight pulled out a potion, letting his aura pulse with power. The battle was about to begin. The Black Knight drew his sword and declared that only one of them would leave alive. The hunter remained confident. He believed nothing had changed since the last time. They were not equals then, and they weren't now. But when the knight drank the potion and his power surged, the hunter hesitated. A strange glow reflected off the knight's bald head. The hunter noticed the shine and even heard a shimmering sound. The light intensified. The hunter grew suspicious. He believed the knight had equipped some secret magical item. A blinding spell, a hidden energy bomb, maybe even a sacred mirror or crystal. He accused the knight of cheating. But the knight denied everything, shouting that the glow came from his own head, nothing more, nothing less. He declared that this was the small cost he had paid to defeat his rival. He had lost his hair, but gained unimaginable strength. Then he launched his attack, sword slicing through the air. According to the human who gave him the potion, his critical hits were now guaranteed. The hunter struggled to keep up. The glow from the knight's head was too bright. He could barely see the attacks coming, but managed to dodge at the last second, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. Back at the shop, someone knocked on the door. Lin opened it to find the demon hunter, badly injured and covered in wounds. Lin was surprised by how quickly he'd been defeated. The hunter collapsed into a chair and said he'd pay double, just heal him already. The system gave Lin a mission. The hunter began explaining what happened. He said he'd faced an old subordinate who had never come close to defeating him before. But this time, every strike had been a critical hit. Lin asked for confirmation. Had the hits really been that effective? The hunter confirmed it. He was sure it had something to do with the man's glowing bald head. He couldn't stop getting blinded by it. He believed the man had enchanted his scalp with some kind of holy blessing. Then he said something alarming. If he ever found out who gave the knight that potion, he would rip them to pieces. Lin panicked inside. It became obvious that the knight Lin had sold the potions to was the same one this man had fought. He had to stay calm. Thankfully, the hunter hadn't realized yet. Moments later, Lin announced the treatment was done. He offered healing potions at 200 coins each. Just then, the hunter spotted a familiar bottle on the table. He recognized it immediately. It looked exactly like what the bald knight had been drinking. He stared Lin down. Lin pretended not to understand, asking what bottle he was talking about. The hunter didn't buy it. He accused Lin of lying and said he clearly saw that same bottle. Lin played dumb again but finally admitted that yes, the knight had come to his shop and had been very generous. In fact, he claimed the knight paid 10,000 coins for his potions. The hunter was stunned. What kind of potion cost that much? That's when Lin launched his sales pitch. He introduced the incredible new critical hit potion, exclusive and effective, capable of defeating both monsters and market rivals. The hunter had no interest in his marketing. He just wanted to know why Lin was helping a dark creature like the knight. Lin defended himself. First, he didn't know the knight's target. Second, the man paid handsomely. Third, maybe instead of fighting back, the hunter should return the favor and buy a few potions himself. The hunter let go of Lin, releasing his grip on his collar. But he admitted he had no choice. He needed the same kind of power. Lin quickly named the price, 2,000 skull coins per potion. But because they were friends, he offered a 20% discount, 1,600 each. The hunter didn't look pleased. He pulled out his weapon and threatened to kill Lin and take everything. Lin pretended to be hurt. He reminded the hunter that they were of the same race and had a deep bond. It was because of that friendship that he offered the discount. He even grabbed the hunter's hand dramatically, acting like a victim. The hunter told him to stop the act. Eventually, the hunter gave in. He demanded the same potions the knight had received and added that money was no issue. Lin quickly gathered 10 critical potions plus the healing tonic he had just used. He charged a total of 16,900 coins and suggested rounding it up to 17,000. The hunter paid and stormed off. Lin smiled, happy to complete another system mission. He had made a fortune, then he paused. If more people kept using this potion, everyone would go bald. He came up with a new plan: buy a critical damage potion and get a free hair transplant. A new business idea was born. Meanwhile, the bald knight was still on the hunt. He knew the hunter was nearby, badly injured and not far from where they last fought. This was his best chance to climb the ranks of the dark world. He had waited hundreds of years for this moment. Just as he prepared to attack, he noticed something glowing behind him. Turning around, he was shocked. The hunter now had a massive bald head too, glowing just like his. The knight asked if it was really him. The hunter confirmed it. He had embraced baldness and increased his power. He said the knight wasn't the only one who could shine. The knight responded that his glow was stronger, raising his brightness to 300 lumens. The hunter countered by increasing his shine to an even higher frequency. Soon, the two of them were competing to see whose bald head shone brighter. The knight reached 400 lumens. It was a ridiculous contest. Finally, the hunter slashed with his sword, declaring the game over. He demanded to know why the demon hunter had copied him and accused him of stealing his style. Their duel began once again. This time, two radiant bald warriors fighting under the glowing sky. Back at the shop, Lin earned a new achievement as a potion seller. On top of that, he reached level 6 and unlocked something new, vision mode. He was puzzled. What was this vision function even for? The system explained it was a kind of illusionary space, a world mirroring everything that had existed in the dark realm for thousands of years. Within it, he could communicate with other creatures. Lin thought it sounded similar to being inside a shared consciousness or mental dimension. The system added that every time he entered, it would cost 500 skull coins. He winced at the price. It wasn't cheap. But he had made a lot of money that day, so he figured why not try it out. He activated the vision mode by clicking a small eye icon. In an instant, he was transported to a vast green void. Everything was still and eerie. He asked aloud if this was really the vision mode. The system confirmed it and added that this specific place was known as the 11th Abyss, zone number 900. In this region, a supreme being ruled and no one was allowed to fight. Lin glanced toward a massive eye floating in the air. Was this the so-called supreme god watching everything? Out of curiosity, he asked the system if it had any connection to that being. The system firmly denied it, claiming there was no relation. Then, randomly, it rewarded him with 1,000 coins. Suspicious but interested, Lin received a magical rune on his arm. The system warned him to stay hidden. If any creature found out his true location, it could be dangerous. He then transferred 1,000 coins into his vision profile. His status showed him as a human from another world, without any formal identity, with medium danger ranking. Not far from him, only a few ghost entities wandered. Suddenly, a message appeared. Blood had been spilled. It was an alert about a battle happening in Ghost Alley, a duel between the hunter and the Black Knight. Viewers were invited to pay 20 coins to watch. Curious, Lin asked how this worked. Could he really get real-time updates like that? He paid the 20 coins and was instantly pulled into a viewing area. Now standing in Ghost Alley, the experience felt surprisingly real. He could hear sounds of battle echoing through the street. He moved forward to check who was fighting. Sure enough, it was the hunter and the Black Knight facing off once again. A system update confirmed their rankings. The Black Knight held position 171, while the hunter was at 143. There was even a live chat overlay. Viewers were commenting wildly, some cheering, others laughing. One person complained they couldn't focus on the battle. They were too distracted by the blinding bald heads. Lin was taken aback. It felt just like watching a live stream on Earth. He hadn't expected the dark world to have such modern tech. But if this vision world could be accessed by others too, then maybe he could expand his business here. He imagined providing medical help or potion sales right inside this virtual space. Still, if he could access it, then so could the higher-ups. Maybe the boss should use this space to promote the shop. He explored further and found a regional chat window. Everything really did feel like an online game. But then he noticed some worrying conversations. People were sharing weird stories about his clinic. One claimed they had seen Lin standing over someone with a chainsaw, tearing them apart. Another mentioned how the doctor once shoved his hand down their throat just to pull out a doll's arm. Lin was horrified. Why was everyone badmouthing the shop? He scrolled through more and saw a post by the same ghost lady from before. It looked like she had uploaded something similar to a social media story. In her post, she warned that she saw Lin doing something weird with her daughter. She didn't say what, but clearly she didn't trust him. Lin panicked. Now she knew everything. He quickly exited the vision world and returned to reality. He rushed to shut the door before she could show up. But just as he was about to close it, a woman's hand reached through. She stepped inside and greeted him, asking if he was closing up early. Lin knew he was in trouble. He replied that he wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest. She didn't believe him. His favorability rating instantly dropped. She placed a hand on his shoulder, acting sympathetic. She said she only wanted to thank him for taking care of her daughter. The crisis meter shot up to 79. He tried to brush it off, saying it wasn't a big deal, just something any doctor would do. But before he could reach into his pocket for a distraction, she was already standing in front of him again. She insisted on expressing her gratitude. The crisis rose to 85, then 94. Tension was thick. Then out of nowhere, someone else walked into the shop. It was the old lady. She asked Lin if he was feeling sick again. He politely greeted her and asked about her day. The old lady, speaking slowly, said not many people cared for her stories anymore. But what Lin had given her earlier had truly touched her. He thanked her and said he had more interesting items, showing her the hair samples he collected from the hunter and the knight. She asked if he was the one who shaved the heads of those two bald men who had just been fighting. Lin confirmed it, calling them loyal customers. The old lady seemed impressed. She said everyone in Ghost Alley seemed connected to him somehow. It was rather inspiring. Lin said it was his honor to help anyone in need. He invited her inside to rest and she accepted. Privately, he sighed in relief. Her arrival had saved his life. At the same time, he received a system reward for successfully escaping the ghost woman's malice, along with a diagnostic tag marking him with a curse. The old lady looked at the strange woman and asked who she was. Lin casually explained that she was a friendly neighbor and client. The ghost woman said she wouldn't stay long and didn't want to disturb them. She mentioned she was preparing a special meal that evening and wanted him to come to her house, number 45. She made sure he understood the invite, using a seductive look to make her intentions clear. His mental stability plummeted. The system gave him two mission options: accept or refuse the invitation. Either way, survival was the goal. After she left, Lin muttered under his breath, hoping never to see her again. The old lady warned him to be more careful. Spirits like her didn't forgive easily and would haunt him forever if provoked. Lin thanked her and admitted he would have been taken away if not for her help. She agreed without him Ghost Alley wouldn't even exist. But she made it clear this was the last time she would interfere. From now on, he was on his own. After she left, Lin stared at the clock. Time was passing. The boss still hadn't returned. He didn't know what to do. He paced back and forth. He could try staying in the clinic again and hope to survive like yesterday, but that felt risky. Visiting the red-dressed ghost woman might be even worse. He tried to calm himself down. Then he decided to go back into the vision world and gather information. Immediately, he saw that the witch was chatting with the burned ghost girl. She asked if the human boy had been killed yet. The other replied not yet. He was saved by the old woman. But she had invited him to dinner. If he came, she had a little show prepared. And if he didn't, even better. Lin closed the chat, heart racing. Things were bad. Still, he tried to reassure himself. It was just a dinner, right? What could really go wrong? Lin stepped out of the shop determined. He equipped himself as best he could. The moment he stepped outside, cursed creatures stared at him from every direction. He quickly boosted his vitality stats, hoping to survive whatever came next, and headed toward house number 45. When he arrived, he called out, saying her guest had arrived. No one responded. Inside, the house was silent, but filled with strange hanging bodies. They weren't dead, just suspended. Rather than being frightened, Lin casually poked them, commenting that none of them were as good-looking as him. He kept walking until he reached the dining table. But the host was nowhere in sight. What he didn't know was that someone was watching him through a mirror. From her hidden space, the witch announced to her companions that their guest had arrived. The doctor was here, and now it was time for them to meet him. In the Dark Realms version of a livestream chat, the Blood Doll expressed doubts about killing Lin. She believed that if Blood Saw returned, he would definitely seek revenge. But the burned ghost disagreed. To her, Lin had caused too much trouble in Ghost Alley and needed to pay for everything. A skeleton spirit asked if the plan was to kill him. The queen responded that death would be too merciful. She wanted to see him consumed by fear before he died, to make him feel 100 times the pain he caused her daughter. With a snap of her fingers, she commanded the cursed beings in her house to begin. Back in the house, Lin was sitting quietly, feeling a bit sleepy, waiting for the mysterious dinner. Then chains descended, and the previously lifeless bodies around him began to move. At first, Lin assumed he was hallucinating. He convinced himself that there was no way a bunch of walking corpses had just dropped down in front of him. But when he looked again, they were all approaching. He stood up, closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they had moved even closer. Trying to stay calm, he realized they only moved when he wasn't looking. So he decided not to blink. But as they got closer, it became impossible. He finally blinked. Suddenly, one of the creatures was inches from his face. People watching the stream were thrilled. It could only be the Blood Queen. She knew how to induce real terror. They assumed he was about to be bitten as soon as he blinked again. The queen reassured them that this was just the appetizer. The real horror hadn't started. But while she expected panic, Lin was calmly inspecting the creature's mouth. The viewers were completely confused. One person noticed he had taken something out of the mouth, a shiny object. Turns out Lin had just pulled out a gold tooth. People began to realize the tooth might be valuable. In the human world, gold like that would be worth a lot. So Lin wasn't panicking, he was treasure hunting. The Blood Queen insisted he was only pretending to be calm. But Lin was fully focused. He knew he couldn't blink. Still, his thoughts were elsewhere. He was analyzing the creatures, wondering if their materials could be salvaged. He reached into his coat, took out his tools. And everyone stared, wondering what he would do next. Then, without hesitation, he stabbed one of the corpses with precision. A ripple of pain passed through the Blood Queen herself. She seemed to feel it in some unseen spiritual way. And Lin wasn't done. He kept working on each corpse with the same technique. The burned mummy watching the stream couldn't believe what she was seeing. Lin was calmly walking between the monsters, even acting like he was enjoying himself. The chat exploded with disbelief. Viewers commented that he actually seemed more energized after the monsters showed up. Now Lin was standing in front of the next one, locking eyes. He looked excited, asking silently who was next. The Blood Queen had enough. She shouted that she would end the curse and ordered a full attack. Another creature rushed in, ready to bite him. But Lin was confident now. One by one, the monsters fell. He kept hitting the same spot, like a surgeon. The queen was furious and humiliated. The viewers were stunned. Lin looked like a hero. Some even said he was fearless. When he reached the front door, it looked like he was about to flee. But then a strange sound echoed. Familiar, too familiar. He wasn't running, he was preparing. He had pulled out the electric saw. Lin finished off the last of the mummies with the saw, but every strike drained his mental stability. His sanity was slipping. The livestream audience didn't know what to think anymore. The burned ghost commented that the queen would have to use crueler methods. This guy was even worse than his boss. Then a system alert popped up. The blood doll had reached maximum fear toward Lin. His popularity in the dark world was skyrocketing. Lin found it strange. He saw many familiar names, but none of them were present here. He reached into his coat, poured something into a glass, and drank calmly. Apparently, the wine was excellent. Meanwhile, the doll suggested maybe it was time to let Lin go. But the Blood Queen wasn't finished yet. She pulled a lever, triggering the next part of her twisted plan. Lin felt something shift in the room. When he turned around, he saw a strange painting. It was staring directly at him. He walked up to it, wondering why a human painting would be in a house like this. Then the eyes in the painting started to move. Right as he realized it, a hand touched his shoulder from behind. He turned around and saw a terrifying, disfigured woman standing behind him. Despite the horror, Lin stayed completely calm. The livestream viewers all admitted they would have lost control by now. The queen watched closely, waiting for him to break. But Lin simply greeted the ghost calmly, telling her not to worry and even inviting her to share a meal. The ghost girl came up behind him to curse him. But Lin noticed in time and gave her a hard slap. Everyone watching froze. The ghost's head flew off. Lin picked it up gently, looked at it with care, and softly scolded her not to scare people like that. Then he told her to behave. The ghost couldn't understand how he was touching her. She was a spirit, a cursed entity. How was this possible? Lin explained that as a pharmacist and doctor, he had to work with spirits all the time. He was constantly under the effects of special potions that allowed him to interact with cursed beings. Otherwise, how could he perform surgery? She seemed to accept it. Lin introduced himself and asked if they could get to know each other better. The burned ghost watching the chat said something was off. This wasn't normal development. The Blood Witch remembered something important. Lin was like this. The more horrifying things became, the more interested he got. The ghost girl freaked out. She opened her own skull, exposing her brain, thinking that would finally scare him. But Lin leaned in with curiosity. He admired what he saw. She screamed and tried to escape. Lin ran after her and caught her before she could disappear into a wall. He calmly told her she wasn't scary at all, and if she wanted to know how to terrify someone properly, he could teach her. The ghost asked what he meant by that. Lin explained he would show her how to scare someone the right way. He took her hand and placed it on his chest, asking if she could feel the heartbeat. What she was holding, he said, was his heart. The watching ghosts gasped. His sanity dropped even more. He brought his face close to hers and continued teaching. To truly scare someone, he said, you had to feed fear into their heart slowly. Build the sensation, make the victim feel trapped. Then when the fear peaks, you have to lock eyes and create the illusion that the heart is being torn from the body, so vividly that it appears in front of them. She stood frozen, staring, unable to speak. Even the queen was visibly shaken. At the climax of the scene, Lin gave her a loud scare. Across the realm, sanity levels dropped. People began panicking and shutting off their vision connections. Back in the house, the ghost let out a loud scream. The remaining viewers disconnected. It was too much. The queen was begged to stop. Lin finally revealed that it wasn't really his heart. It belonged to a faceless demon he'd previously harvested. He asked how she liked the demonstration. He explained that she had just learned the true elements of fear, visuals, sound, and the surprise factor. He stared at her with pride, but she was trembling, crying, begging him not to come any closer. Lin received yet another system notification. The blood doll had reached absolute horror toward him. And now even the bald ghost and burned mummy were utterly terrified. Lin didn't understand what was going on. He noticed experience points coming in from all sorts of strange people. It started to feel like he was starring in some bizarre reality show inside the vision world. Meanwhile, the little doll begged the Blood Queen to end the livestream. She said nothing made sense anymore and insisted Lin wasn't normal. Another viewer, the skeletal maniac, reminded the queen that she had promised to scare Lin, but it was the viewers who were scared now. The queen slammed the table in frustration. He was supposed to be embarrassed, but somehow she was the one being humiliated. She angrily decided to shut off the stream and deal with Lin herself. She promised everyone they'd hear news of his death soon. The mummy encouraged her, telling her not to hesitate, grab him and finish him. The queen claimed she would decorate her front door with his head. Her body shifted into a liquid form, and she slipped down through the ceiling like black ink. Appearing downstairs, she declared that she had tolerated Lin long enough. It was time to end this. One of her ghost servants tried to explain that Lin had gotten tired of waiting and had left to look for her. She saw him walking past the window and hurried to intercept him. When she finally caught up, Lin was standing there, holding her daughter in his arms. She immediately demanded that he put the girl down. Lin calmly reminded her that she had invited him over for dinner and he hadn't even gotten a meal yet. All he got was a scare fest. The queen wasn't in the mood for small talk. She accused him of twisting her daughter's appearance and pretending that the transformation reflected her beauty and kindness. She wanted him torn apart. Lin, unfazed, raised 3 fingers and said he hadn't done anything with ill intent. But right then a bolt of lightning struck. How ironic, right as he made his promise. She stepped closer and Lin stumbled backward onto the bed. He quickly admitted it. Yes, he had changed the girl. But he begged her to understand that he never meant harm. The queen accused him of lying again. Lin tried to explain. The child had been in a terrifying state, barely recognizable. He was afraid that even the pig-headed father wouldn't recognize her. Everything he did was to help. The crisis level was rising rapidly, already past 97. Lin raised his hands and said he surrendered. But he wanted a chance to explain. She let him speak. He confessed he was terrified at first. Her daughter had looked like a monster and he thought she was going to kill him. So out of fear and curiosity, he tried to improve her appearance to create something beautiful. That pushed her over the edge. She screamed at him, so he used her child as practice. She lunged at him. Lin quickly brought up his connections, trying to stall. He reminded her that he was a doctor and many powerful people owed him favors. If she killed him, they would come for revenge. He mentioned 2 familiar names, the bald men fighting earlier. She scoffed he was referring to the demon hunter and the Black Knight, as if they were his friends. He reached into his coat and pulled out 2 revolvers. She froze. Those were the hunter's treasured weapons. He explained that they were of the same race, and the hunter had entrusted him with the guns for emergencies. If Lin ever fired a shot, the hunter would rush to his aid. He added that the hunter wasn't far, just across the alley. To strengthen his story, Lin pulled out a strand of hair. He said it was from the Black Knight, a good friend of his. The knight had given it as a protective charm, warning him it was cursed. If anyone tried to hurt Lin, the knight's chest hairs would react, and that meant trouble for the attacker. The queen started doubting herself. She had fought both men and knew how strong they were. Anyone who had shaved their heads and lived must truly have connections. But then she snapped again. She accused him of lying. How could 2 sworn enemies like the hunter and the knight both be his friends? Lin chuckled and hinted she didn't know the full story. He claimed that despite appearing to be rivals, the 2 were actually lovers, constantly fighting and falling back in love. Even as he spoke, the 2 bald warriors on opposite ends of the alley began sneezing, blaming each other for some kind of curse. Back in the rooms, Lin grew more confident. He reminded her that she didn't even know about his teacher, Bloodsaw, the legendary butcher of the underworld. He was the only apprentice. If she killed him, who knew what Bloodsaw would do? He added that the old woman from Ghost Alley treated him like her own grandchild. If anything happened to him, she wouldn't forgive it. The queen was growing overwhelmed. She wanted to kill him, but his web of connections made it complicated. Then Lin pulled out a small rock. He told her it was a shard from the tooth of an abyssal creature, the same kind that had devoured entire districts days ago. She remembered those monstrous mouths. Even high-level creatures ran from them. She was stunned. How did Lin survive such a thing, let alone harvest apart from it? Lin explained the truth. The abyssal creature known as the head hunter was his friend. He then told a story. Long ago, a powerful ruler rose in the dark world. With his vast army, he conquered empires, but arrogance blinded him. He attempted to enslave a root-level monster. That mistake ended everything. The creature wiped out his entire kingdom in one day. Nothing was left but bones. The fallen crown became a reminder, a warning throughout the dark realm: never mess with a head hunter. The queen was now deeply shaken. She believed she could handle most beings, but a head hunter was on another level. She'd be hunted down and erased without a chance to escape. Lin stood calmly, reminding her that although he was weak, he had powerful friends. And as neighbors, there was no reason for conflict. They could help each other, support, protect, maybe even warm each other up. He gave her a charming smile, playing the innocent neighbor card once again. She sighed that same smile again. It always disarmed her. She returned to her human form, saying she would let it slide just this once. In the future, she might still kill him. But for now, she would tolerate him. Lin thanked her. He admitted that most of what he said in the morning was probably nonsense. But one thing wasn't a lie: she did have certain qualities that other spirits lacked. Blushing, she asked what he meant. He walked closer, complimenting the room. Despite the mess in the rest of the house, this room was neat and cozy. That alone showed her sense of care. She tried to act uninterested, saying it was just something casual she had done. But Lin pointed out the details: the chairs, the furniture, the carefully placed flower. No regular spirit would do this, and certainly not keep a non-toxic flower alive in a place like this. She blushed again, flustered. He began to increase strategic progress. Lin arrived at the Red Witch's house. He remembered that she had once said she didn't like her daughter acting cute, so he asked why the girl was now wearing such a nice wool outfit. The witch denied being responsible, but Lin didn't push further. He told her she didn't need to explain and suggested she simply admit she enjoyed seeing her daughter look cute. There was nothing wrong with that. He even pointed out that it was natural, since the girl reminded her of her own past. Even though the witch was an evil spirit now, she still carried a human heart. His words seemed to make her more beautiful as he spoke. She started to wonder if maybe she truly hadn't let go of her human life. If she had not died that day, she might have lived as an ordinary woman, married, and had a daughter. But reality was different. She had already died, and now she was an evil spirit. She told herself she had no choice but to embrace her new identity and bury her human feelings deep within her mind. She was surprised Lin could sense these feelings, since she thought she had hidden them perfectly. The system then warned Lin that he had managed to weaken some of the witch's hatred. But Lin wasn't done. He wanted to remove all her hostility. He told her she might not enjoy being an evil spirit, and offered to help her become fully human again. The witch seemed doubtful. She told him he was being unrealistic. Healing her daughter was one thing, but healing her would be far harder. Her evil form was fully developed, unlike her daughter's. She reminded him that he had only seen her face so far. Then she began to transform. Her leg became bloody, her appearance growing far more terrifying. She told him that he had not truly seen a corrupted spirit yet, and asked if he was still confident in changing her. The witch's young daughter began crying. The mother spoke in a voice full of pain and darkness, claiming she embodied all evil and asking if he thought he could undo that with just his hands. Lin's sanity was slipping. He admitted to himself that her horrifying form was beyond anything he understood, but he forced himself to stay calm. If she sensed his fear, she might destroy him. The crisis level was already at 99%, dangerously close to disaster. Lin closed his eyes, claiming he had a solution. He decided to use his curse correction ability. The system warned him to be careful because her curse was extremely corrupted. Things might not go as planned. But Lin ignored the warning and activated his power. A glow appeared from his hand. Small souls began rising to the sky. He successfully removed the curse. But the witch ended up without clothes. In his hand, he now held a crown. The system confirmed the curse had been removed, and that his ability would recharge in 12 hours. In her new form, the witch seemed even more dangerous. Lin reminded her that he had told the truth. She was confused and asked how he managed to remove the curse. Lin answered confidently, saying he was a doctor and never abandoned a client. Her daughter cheered while Lin secretly felt nervous. It seemed the witch might have become even less predictable without the curse. Later, Lin waited with the child for the mother to return from another room. He took a long time, and during that wait, the system rewarded him with something. When the witch finally returned, she apologized for making him wait. She now looked more dangerous and charming than before, saying it had taken her some time to change clothes. Lin blushed, wondering if she was even the same person. She apologized for her earlier actions. Lin told her it was fine, since they were neighbors now and should help each other. She admitted she didn't expect him to completely remove the curse like that. Her favorability toward him was rising rapidly. He warned her that the removal was temporary. In 24 hours, she would return to her original form. She was surprised, only 24 hours. Lin explained that if she visited him regularly, he could make the change permanent. She smiled and asked if she could come to his shop every day. Her favorability rose again. Lin agreed, even offering a 20% discount. He thought to himself that not only had he solved the crisis, but he had also gained a loyal customer. The witch, curious about the discount, asked if she even had to pay anything. Lin explained that removing the curse took a lot of energy, so there was a small fee. She asked for the price. Lin was confused, thinking she should have money given her power. But she admitted she rarely cared for money. What she usually wanted was to consume a person instead. She blushed, staring at Lin. Lin told her it was fine if she didn't have money. She could pay with other valuable things, like body parts, herbs, or curses. She stepped closer and asked if another kind of payment would be acceptable. Lin stepped back, blushing. She lowered the strap of her dress and leaned toward him with a playful look. He told her to respect herself. She teased him, reminding him that he had called her baby earlier, and asked why he wouldn't call her that again. Lin tried to stop her, insisting that his shop didn't accept that kind of payment. She challenged him, asking if he thought she wasn't worth enough. Lin felt overwhelmed. She was far more experienced than he was, over 100 years older. He was just a teenager, unsure how to handle the situation. He thought to himself that accepting her offer might earn money, but it would also drain his energy. When she moved even closer, he pushed her away. The witch asked if he had ever been close to someone before. He stayed silent. She asked if he had ever even kissed or held hands with anyone. The system noted that he felt deeply embarrassed. She then promised to teach him step by step, like a teacher. The scene shifted, and somehow he ended up sitting on the bed. The system congratulated him for gaining the achievement of a first-time experience, saying he had successfully tamed the blonde monster. Her favorability toward him increased by 50 points, and he earned 400 experience points. She finished getting dressed, saying she would return the next night. She promised to take care of him in exchange for his care. She added that each time he removed her curse, she would teach him a new powerful technique. Lin left quickly, completing the mission and receiving a blood demon cloak. The blood demon cloak allowed him to become like an evil spirit, completely invisible and untouchable. But there was a drawback. While using it, he couldn't attack anyone. Lin cursed the system. He complained that completing the mission had turned him into a pervert, spreading fear everywhere, and even accepting payment from a woman with her body. Not only had he been put in danger, but he had also been seduced. He thought to himself that he was lucky he had put so many points into resistance. Without that, he wouldn't have survived her overwhelming charm. He decided he would continue putting points into constitution. He prepared for her next visit, but then noticed something strange. It had been 3 days and the professor hadn't returned. He wondered if something had happened. Using 500 coins, he entered the vision world to check the chat. There, the blood doll was asking the queen how things had gone with the human apprentice of Bloodsaw and how his death had been. The queen replied that he had received his punishment. The doll asked if he had suffered and the queen said yes. He had been strong, but after being struck several times, he was defeated. The burnt mummy asked what she meant by calling him strong. The queen said everything went fine, she had consumed him, though in a different way than expected. Lin realized she was openly telling everyone, and even worse, she was doing it in a public chat where the whole city could see. He decided to ignore it and focus on his work. He checked the regional channel but found no information about the professor. Then he went to the global channel hoping for clues. Since there was nothing there, he created a post asking if anyone had seen the Chainsaw Maniac. But posting cost 1,000 coins. He thought the system was a lot like a video game from Earth. Maybe the person controlling this world was human as well. At that moment, a pentagram appeared. Someone was trying to contact him. In the territory world, Lin came across a strange gargoyle. This place acted as a bridge between dark worlds and other worlds. But to use it, a sacrifice was required. Lin became excited at the thought that maybe, with the right sacrifice, he could return to his own world. But when he tried to use it, the system informed him that he did not have enough permissions. He realized he would have to increase his level before unlocking this feature. Even so, he now had access to the trading area and decided to look around. There were many shops, some sold spells, powers, and weapons. One shop with a skull sign sold high-level items for humans. Another sold organs and limbs for connecting to other beings. There was even a shop offering companions who could keep someone awake all night. The whole place reminded Lin of a video game, and he wondered if the creator of this world had been a child addicted to the internet. The system explained that he could teleport to any shop instantly, and that opening his own shop would cost 10,000 gold coins. He decided to create a store called Bloodchain's Pharmacy, but when he tried, the system told him the name was already taken. Confused, he teleported to check and appeared in front of a large door. His teacher already had a store here. He tried to enter, but the shop required a password. Since Lin didn't know the password, he guessed based on what the professor liked. He tried phrases about age, students, and affection, but none worked, until he tried one about love. To his surprise, that opened the door. Inside, the shop looked almost exactly like their store in the real world, though it needed some maintenance. The system told him that entering or leaving the shop cost 500 skull coins. Lin was shocked at how expensive it was and wondered where the teacher had been getting so much money. He checked the shop's balance and found 4,000 coins saved. Curious, he looked at the sales history and saw that the professor had been selling many monster organs and body parts. Lin remembered the time the professor came back carrying a bag. He must have taken the materials to the operating room, extracted everything valuable, and then sold it here. The shop in the underworld seemed to be a cover for where his real earnings came from. Lin was impressed. Judging by the names of the creatures, they were powerful enemies, and the professor had defeated many of them. Then Lin noticed a message left days ago. It was from an old friend of the professor, inviting him to explore something called the Hanging Tower. It also mentioned that the professor had been part of the Demon Association for 10 years. Lin thought this might be the professor's last known location. Since the professor was already connected to the association, Lin assumed it shouldn't cause trouble. This seemed like a good opportunity. While he was in this world, he could make money and help the shop at the same time. He went to the back. Then he started producing more of his special critical attack potions, the ones that also caused baldness. With the potions ready, he prepared to market the store. To advertise, he spent another 1,000 coins to create a huge billboard for the shop. On it, he announced that the critical potion was available for only 3,000 coins and could finish off any enemy. He stood by the door expecting crowds to arrive, but no one came. He told himself that customers would show up soon and decided to spend more on marketing. Still, the shop stayed empty. He had already spent 5,000 coins and no customers had appeared. Frustrated, he decided to change tactics. He hired a succubus to demonstrate the potion's effect, showing that it could make someone strong enough to endure her full energy. As a final touch, Lin created fake customer profiles to post glowing reviews, claiming the potion was the best they had ever used, making them unbeatable. This time, the plan worked. Monsters began showing up, all asking about the potion. Some even said they needed it to impress a partner or win someone back. Lin was puzzled at how effective his marketing had been, but he decided not to question success. It was time to start making money. When Lin went outside, there was a crowd waiting. One woman asked another why she wanted the potion, saying her husband couldn't even handle her now. Lin addressed the crowd, saying there were many customers but only 30 bottles of the potion. He asked what they should do. The wealthier buyers immediately started bidding. One offered 4,000 coins for a single bottle. Another skeleton shouted that he would pay 5,000 for all 30 bottles. Soon the bids reached 6,000, then 7,000, then 7,500. Lin pretended to calm them, saying there was enough for everyone, even though he knew there was. He assured himself that he wasn't doing anything wrong, it was just marketing. The system even rewarded him with points for tricking everyone, which annoyed him. He argued with the system, saying he wasn't deceiving anyone because the potion really did work. Then he remembered the problem: these potions caused baldness. Soon everyone who used them would lose their hair. He decided he needed to return home quickly and create a hair restoration potion before his customers complained. Elsewhere, an army of elves was preparing for battle against monsters. A soldier reported that their supplies had arrived, and the leader was impressed to hear that the potion could double critical power. He asked about side effects, but the soldier admitted no one knew yet. Before they could discuss further, a group of monsters appeared. The leader ordered everyone to defend themselves and raise their spears. The battle began, but the swarm of insects seemed endless. No matter how hard the warriors fought, there was no way to stop them. The soldiers realized they needed more strength to win, and decided to rely on the doctor's potion. One of them drank it, and a purple aura surrounded his body. His power surged, and he threw his spear with such force that it shattered an enemy far in the distance. His hair fell out instantly, but he didn't care. Soon more warriors followed his example, and before long, every fighter in the area was bald. News began spreading across Sin City. Reports told of strange incidents in many areas, all connected to people losing their hair. In the Blood Clan, someone who had gone bald broke every combat record ever set. A missing boat at sea was located when one of its passengers was spotted from afar, shining under the sun. Meanwhile, Lin was busy producing more potions. His reputation in Sin City increased by 10 points, and his popularity with the Black Elves rose by 5. He was confused by this but had no time to think. The production had to continue. He decided it was time to make another fortune with a new creation, the potion of flesh and blood proliferation. This potion could quickly regenerate injuries and even restore lost limbs. However, it came with small, unknown side effects. Just as he finished, there was a knock at the door. When Lin looked, he saw someone missing an arm. The system showed that her combat ability was low, but she was not weak. In this dark world, though, she struggled to compete with other species. Lin invited the girl inside and told her to sit down. She explained that a monster had eaten her arm, and if she didn't get treatment, she would die. Lin accepted the mission to restore her arm. He assured her that he could fix it. She hesitated, asking if he planned to trap her, drug her, tie her up, or do anything improper. Lin was confused but insisted that was not the case. She decided to trust him, and her favorability toward him increased. Lin was surprised at how quickly she trusted him. He asked why she had brought that up, and she explained that before being transported to this world, the elders of her world warned her that many creatures here were wicked and deceptive. She asked again if he was a liar. He assured her he was. Her trust increased even more. She drank the potion he offered. Lin noticed how easy she was to persuade. He asked about her race. He learned that her people were migrating to the northern mountains of Hell, a place rich in food and territory. She warned him not to deceive her. He asked if she was a warrior of her tribe, and she proudly declared herself a powerful captain of the Goblin clan, the first knight to complete a special test. She swore that wherever her sword pointed, the future of her people would follow. Lin told her to sit again because her wound had reopened. He thought she was both easy to trick and a little strange. He asked why she was in the Valley of the Soul if she was headed to the northern mountains, since the valley was in the opposite direction. She confidently claimed she was going north. Lin asked her to point north, but when she did, she pointed south. She insisted she was never wrong. She claimed to have walked 2,000 miles already, and said her intuition told her she was on the correct path. Lin asked if she always relied on intuition, and she proudly said it was a talent of her tribe. He asked how far her destination was from her starting point, and she said 500 miles. He reminded her that she had already traveled 2,000 miles, so how had she not arrived yet? She stared at her hand in confusion, realizing something was off. Lin decided to help. He took out a small item from a drawer and offered to sell it to her for 200 coins. She blushed and asked what it was. He explained that it was called a compass. Normally it would be worth 1,000 coins, but he would give her a discount. Excited, she agreed, and her trust in him increased again. However, his morality dropped, and the system pointed out that he would sell anything for a price. Lin warned her as a friend that just because someone claimed to be good did not mean they weren't lying. She thanked him, though she admitted she had already forgotten most of what he said. He thought to himself that there was nothing more he could do. She had survived this long, and would probably continue to survive. He asked again how she lost her arm. She explained proudly that it was from a giant's bite. She had been too weak to fight it, but she managed to dodge enough to avoid being eaten completely. Lin asked her to remove her armor so he could examine her wound, but she refused, saying a knight could not go without protection. For the first time, Lin suggested using anesthesia, but she declined, saying it would dull her reaction time. She insisted she could handle the pain. Since she was certain, Lin told her she was one of the bravest people he had met. She was tied down for the procedure and told him to go ahead. He warned her she could scream if she wanted, but should be careful not to bite her tongue. She boasted that her pain tolerance was at its maximum. But when he made the first incision, she screamed and cried immediately. Lin noted how small she seemed, and she asked why it hurt so much and why he was using such a sharp instrument. He reminded her that this was only the first cut. He suggested anesthesia again, but she refused, insisting she could handle it. When he continued, she cried even louder, saying the pain was unbearable despite her claims of high resistance. She became so frustrated she threatened to bite him. He placed a tube in her mouth to keep her from doing so. He told her it was almost over, though in truth it was just beginning. After more work he finally finished, and the system awarded him points. She was exhausted, but he assured her it was normal to feel that way. She told him he was the first man to cause her so much pain, and the first to put something that large in her mouth until she drooled. Lin tried to clarify that the tube was just to keep her from biting her tongue. He suspected this might lead to some misunderstandings. Despite her suffering, she was impressed by his generosity, and her favorability toward him increased again. Lin was baffled that enduring pain made her like him more. Lin brought out a vial and explained that now they needed to rebuild her arm. He asked if she had enough money, warning her that the process could be expensive. She assured him she had plenty, pulling out a pile of coins from her armor. Lin noticed that her black skull coins had been painted to look like regular ones, meaning she didn't know their true value. When she asked if the amount was enough, he told her it was more than enough. He decided to give her his best work. He went to prepare the most effective potion, even though its side effects were unknown. He warned her about this, but she eagerly drank it anyway. Then she admitted that potions usually didn't work well on her due to her high resistance. Lin was frustrated. It was the perfect opportunity to test the potion, and it had to be on someone immune to it. Still, he told her he would make it work. If it didn't, he wouldn't charge her. She agreed, and instead of having her drink more, he poured it directly on her arm. The bandages fell away. Her arm began to reform before their eyes. Lin was thrilled, though the result looked unusual at first. Her arm continued to grow back. She was amazed and said it felt incredible. Lin admitted the recovery was better than expected and seemed to have no side effects. She was impressed with his skill, but he warned her not to be too quick to fall for him. Side effects might still appear. Her favorability increased by 50 points. He asked what she felt when taking the potion. She said she felt numb at first, then strangely comfortable, and also that something unusual had grown. Confused, Lin asked what she meant. A large tail suddenly emerged from her back. His sanity wavered as the slimy tail moved toward her face. She innocently thought he was teasing her, saying he shouldn't act so casually. Her favorability increased again. Lin told her to open her eyes and look. When she did, she was confused to see the tail right in front of her. Her sanity dropped sharply, and she collapsed to the ground in shock, shouting in confusion about the tentacle growing from her body. Lin told her to calm down, promising he would help, but her panic only grew worse. She insisted the thing was moving inside her, sliding deeper into a strange and tight place. Lin pulled it to check and realized it was coming from her shoulder. He cut it off, but the tentacle still followed her movements. He smashed it completely. She looked at him, asking why a tentacle had grown from her shoulder. Lin assured her it was just a minor side effect and nothing serious. She became suspicious, asking what kind of potion he had given her. She didn't mind growing tentacles, but she was worried something stranger might grow. She pointed out that this didn't seem like a restoration potion at all. It seemed more like a mutation potion. Lin brushed it off with a saying about how the rich depend on technology, while the poor depend on mutation. He told her to focus on her arm, which was growing well. If she used more medicine, it would recover completely. She hesitantly asked if he was certain, worrying that the tentacle might come back. Lin promised to cut it off again if it did. She agreed, wanting her arm fully restored. He applied more of the potion, and another large tentacle appeared. This time it looked more like a tail. He cut it off immediately, but even more tentacles began emerging from beneath her armor. Wings began sprouting from her back. Excited, she begged him not to cut the wings, but he had already removed them. She complained that she had told him not to cut those. 10 minutes later, she lay on the bed as Lin finally completed the mission. He asked how she felt. She said her body felt covered in strange things. He told her it was just her imagination. He had removed everything and the treatment was perfect. He reminded her that potions cost money, but cutting off tentacles did not. She looked sad as she headed for the door, asking if she could leave. Lin said she could, reminding her to leave a like on the store to get an 11% discount next time. Then he stopped her, asking if she was sure there was nothing left inside her body from the potion. She checked herself and said she didn't think so. He decided maybe this potion didn't always cause mutations. Once she left, he considered the treatment a success. He just needed to sell it online now. But then he noticed a bag of coins on the floor, the same coins she kept hidden in her bra. When she left, she no longer needed them. Realizing what had happened, Lin understood that the growth caused by the potion was connected to that bag of coins. He knew he needed to return it to her to prevent her chest from growing even more. But when he went outside, she was gone. He regretted the mistake and thought about finding a way to contact her to apologize. Before he could act, the shop's lamp began to dim, signaling it was time to close. At that moment, he coughed up blood. The system announced that a new risk had appeared. The Bloody Night mission had begun. He had to survive until the next daybreak to earn 2,000 coins and 2,000 experience points. It was not going to be easy. Lin saw glowing text in the air warning him to be careful. He recognized the handwriting as the professor. It was a sign that something dangerous was coming. He quickly grabbed everything he could use, potions, a dagger, a pistol, and even a special heart, to prepare for survival. The system had promised bigger rewards, but that meant the danger would be much greater. The mission hinted that the danger was coming to a specific place, so Lin decided to leave. Naturally, he planned to spend the night at the red-haired witch's house for safety. On his way through the city, some souls reacted to his lamp. The system immediately raised the crisis level to 100%. Realizing how bad this was, he ran back to his shop and locked the door. It became clear that whatever was coming was after him specifically. While he tried to escape through the back door, something smashed through the front entrance. He heard glass shattering as potions were destroyed inside the shop. His skull coins dropped rapidly. Losing that money felt even worse than losing his life. He swore he would not let this go unpunished. He ordered the system to reactivate the Blood Witch's curse and disable the pistols. That way she would sense trouble. Without the curse active on the gun, he could use it freely. The sound of the intruder grew closer. At first, Lin thought it was heading for the front door, but then the noise moved away. He wondered if it had gone to the back. A massive blow smashed through the wall, hitting him and sending him to the ground. Coughing blood, he realized the creature had used a portal to breach the shop. As he looked up, he saw a terrifying monster at the door. It was a large, hideous creature known as a Hell Walker. This was an extremely evil being with unmatched combat power, growing stronger by absorbing other creatures. Tentacles crept up Lin's leg, burrowing into his flesh and draining his blood. The Hell Walker analyzed him and decided his body wasn't worth absorbing. Instead, it blew his leg apart. Lin cried out in pain, shocked at the destruction. The monster, seeing him unable to move, prepared to finish him. Heart racing, Lin fired his gun, hitting the creature in the eye. The shot pierced deep, causing the monster to thrash wildly in pain. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lin equipped his blood cloak, becoming an untouchable evil spirit. While the Hell Walker transformed in rage, Lin ran to hide, throwing himself into a stack of barrels. Beaten and breathless, he thought to himself that he should have expected a creature of this level to track him easily. Life in recent days had been so smooth that he had almost forgotten how easy it was to die in this world. Then he felt something strange happening in his injured leg. A strange change began in Lin's body, and he tried to stop it but couldn't. The system warned him that a side effect was starting, the first stage of mutation. Tentacles emerged from his body. Soon the mutation advanced to level 2, and more flesh-covered tentacles appeared, along with an eye on the back of his neck. The Hell Walker continued thrashing violently. Lin tried to keep hidden, but the monster sensed him and launched an attack. Lin clung to the wall like a spider, grinning like a maniac. He fired at the creature, the bullets carrying a sacred attribute, but the Hell Walker blocked them easily and threw them away. Terrified, Lin realized there was no chance of overpowering it head-on. He decided to run, but the demon could still see him, even through the cloak. A glance from the creature made his skin begin to melt. In desperation, he splashed himself with the mutation potion. Since he was already mutated, the effect triggered another change. The system warned that another mutation was beginning. The Hell Walker prepared a fresh attack. The Hell Walker's massive hand almost caught him. Lin was confused. He was wearing the cloak, so how could it still attack him? But the strikes kept coming. He dodged, running again, covering himself in more potion. Strange eyes grew on his body, eyes capable of seeing ghost energy. He realized the creature's attacks were spiritual in nature. That was why it could still hit him. He looked around and saw dozens of eyes, all glowing with spiritual power tracking him. The cloak wasn't helping. He was still visible but unable to land any hits of his own. He jumped down into the store, threw the cloak aside, and grabbed every potion he could. But the spiritual hand was already closing in. Lin hurled an anti-spirit potion at it just as the claw reached for him. The anti-spirit potion burned through the monstrous hand. Lin grinned as the Hell Walker tried to pull back. But then the creature grabbed his spine. Lin realized something. Was this the same monster that had bitten the goblin captain's arm? As he looked closer, he noticed the Hell Walker's body was fully restored. That likely meant it was resistant to potions as well. He was trapped, he couldn't hide, couldn't escape, and couldn't kill the monster. Even his potions were useless. The Hell Walker began to crush his spine. Lin thought quickly, then twisted his body and fell to the ground. In the process, he severed one of the creature's arms. Despite his broken spine, he kept moving, smashing through walls and running. His survival came from the cursed heart within him. But the system warned that the heart could easily take control of him if used recklessly. Grinning like a madman, Lin decided it was time to turn the fight around. He tore the cursed heart out and pointed it at the Hell Walker, releasing dark spirits into the monster's body. The spirits entered the Hell Walker, circulating through its flesh. Lin watched, unsure if the plan would work. The system reported that the curse was spreading, weakening the creature's core and draining its energy. Lin's confidence rose. But the Hell Walker started an emergency recovery. Lin quickly grabbed his saw. He had to finish the fight before it recovered fully. The cursed heart inside him began absorbing huge amounts of blood. His strength collapsed and he dropped to his knees. He took another potion, determined to survive no matter the cost. The system warned that he had reached level 3 mutation. His body and will could only partially control the transformation. His current mutation was identified as Snake Brain, which he could control at 31%. Seeing no other choice, he sent the snake to start devouring his cursed heart. But before he could press the advantage, the creature returned. Its body had transformed. It was now in a spiritual form. Lin tried to flee, knowing that if the Hellwalker reached full power, survival would be impossible. As Lin retreated, someone appeared in the distance, the red-haired witch. She looked slightly battered and carried a severed head. She teased him about his strange behavior, asking if he was trying some unusual stunt. Lin told her she was late, asking if she hadn't noticed her curse returning. She covered his mouth and playfully explained she had been busy. Her daughter was growing, and she needed to gather supplements for her. She noticed he was in trouble and asked if he wanted help. Lin admitted he was being hunted and offered to forgive her debt for 5 months if she assisted. She declined. He raised the offer to 10 months free, but she still refused. The Hellwalker's presence grew stronger, and the system warned the crisis was escalating. Lin asked her to name her price. She smiled, saying that if he knelt and kissed her toe, she would help. Lin refused, saying if he survived, he would see her next time. The little witch's daughter was proud of him for not giving in, and even the witch herself liked his answer. She pulled him close against her chest, saying she found his stubbornness cute. Her favorability increased. He asked what she planned to do next. The witch said she would help. She activated her full power, unleashing sharp claws across the battlefield. The Hellwalker defended against everything she threw at it. After a quick analysis, it decided she was a high-priority target to devour, even though she had transformed completely. Lin warned the red-haired witch to be careful, explaining that the Hellwalker had a strange hand capable of piercing anything and harming the soul from a distance. He climbed higher to watch the battle from above. The fight was so fast it was nearly impossible to see the movements, only flashes of the creature being slashed apart. Lin was amazed. He hadn't realized she was so skilled in combat. He started cheering her on from a distance, praising her strength, beauty, and skill. His flattery earned him more favorability. Meanwhile, the Hellwalker detected new threats and adapted, moving to a secondary combat level. Lin found it strange that despite the witch tearing the creature apart, the monster was still targeting him as its main opponent. Something suddenly flew past him. The witch spat out a swarm of small creatures that exploded on impact. The blast clashed with the Hellwalker's attack, but neither side was harmed. The monster lunged at Lin again, but the witch protected him by wrapping herself around him. It wrapped around the creature's tentacle and tore into it from the sides. Then it struck toward its eyes. Lin looked at the fragments of eyes scattered on the ground, thinking the fight was finally over. But the eyes began glowing again. The witch continued her assault, piercing through everything in her way. Lin grew frustrated, wondering how stubborn this creature could be. He pulled out more weapons, firing wildly. Even the bullets earned him experience points, but the battle still didn't end. He retreated while taking more potions to recover. A massive claw slashed at him, forcing him to use his tentacles for defense. The little creature in his arms tried to bite the Hellwalker, but the attack failed. The witch launched another strike, finally finding a small demon hiding deep within the Hellwalker's eye. She realized that if she killed this demon, the Hellwalker would lose control. But the eye opened just in time, releasing a shock that electrocuted her. The creature systems completed a second-stage analysis and began new countermeasures. Despite the danger, the witch prepared to attack again. She extended her neck upward for another strike, but was caught halfway. Lin and the smaller witch watched in alarm. A moment later, a tentacle with a red-haired witch's face fell beside them. Lin asked what had happened. She explained that the Hellwalker had analyzed her combat power, adapted to it, and was now devouring and assimilating her abilities. Lin tried to free her, but it was impossible. The Hellwalker was already using her stolen powers, and the crisis level, which had dropped because of her help, shot back up to 99%. The Hellwalker's eye locked onto Lin and leapt at him. He used his mutation to defend himself. He counterattacked, but the creature dodged. He stepped aside, coughing blood. After all the mutations he had endured, a little blood was nothing, but he was in serious trouble. He hadn't expected the Blood Witch to lose, and now he was out of options. He stood frozen, desperately trying to think of a solution. In a rush, he turned and headed to the cellar door, breathing heavily. He remembered there was still his teacher's pet. That creature might be able to help. With a loud bang, he threw open the cellar door, releasing a wave of foul stench. He called out, knowing the creature was pretending to be dead. It hated him, hated the expired potions he always fed it, but now the situation was dire. His teacher was in danger. The monster had targeted the Bloodsoul apothecary, and if he died, the creature would not escape either. He shouted again, hurling several stones into the darkness below. A threatening hiss echoed from deep within the cellar. With a rush of air, a massive winding shape burst from the cellar, casting a shadow over Lin. It was Little Baby, a mysterious, lawful evil creature. A tongue, hidden in the Bloodsoul apothecary for years, hating expired potions and the boy who had fed them. The grotesque tongue loomed before Lin, hissing insults he somehow understood. Despite their mutual dislike, Lin reminded it of the danger. The monster outside was after them all. If his friend fell, they would be next. Reluctantly, after Lin promised months of high-quality potions, the tongue agreed to help. In a flash, it wrapped around him and carried him outside. On the street, the battlefield was in chaos. The monster in the center swelled and contracted, a mechanical voice announcing its consumption progress. Suddenly, massive tentacles with vertical eyes erupted from the ground. The giant tongue was startled and immediately tried to retreat. Lin grabbed its tip again and raised the offer, 3 months of top-quality potions if it saved his friend. The tongue agreed, slightly improving its attitude once more. Then it prepared to act. The next moment, the massive tongue twisted sharply. Lin set the little girl aside, then turned with determination. they would charge. He rushed forward with the tongue at high speed toward the cocoon. The tongue would handle the tentacles, he just needed to reach the monster. The tongue wrapped around him, lifting its tip toward the approaching tentacles. The tentacles, each with vertical eyes, attacked. The tongue struck one at incredible speed. A loud slurp followed. The tentacle dissolved into blood. A voice announced the analysis of Target 3 and activated the full containment protocols. New tentacles appeared, covered in vein-like barriers. They shot forward, wrapping around the tongue. The tongue struggled, releasing slime that corroded the ground, but the tentacles resisted. It cried out sharply. Lin kept running toward the monster. The monster's hands split apart, revealing a giant vertical eye. The eye locked on Lin, his crimson cloak whipped in the air. Lin extended his hand toward the eye. He reached it. His hand passed through the eye and his phantom form entered the cocoon. Writhing flesh surrounded him. He locked onto his injured friend with cursed vision. Inside the Hellwalker, Lin found the red-haired witch, but she was in terrible shape. Part of her brain was gone and much of her body was damaged. Only a small piece of her remained intact. Lin decided he needed to heal her, but simple potions wouldn't be enough. He would have to throw her into the potion pool. The Hellwalker targeted her again, preparing to attack. Lin used one of the cursed hairs from the butcher to wrap around the monster's tongue and try to pull both of them free. But the Hellwalker came after them once more. Lin thought they were both going to die. The monster began some kind of soul-devouring attack, burying him in flesh as he struggled to escape. As he sank deeper, he thought about how this world worked. Even when he gave his best, he might still be swallowed in the end. Survival was never easy, though he considered himself lucky to have met good allies. Determined not to give up, he broke open another potion and poured the entire liquid into his mouth. A level 3 mutation began. The witch's pupils shrank at the sight. She could barely recognize him anymore. The Hellwalker tried to activate its analysis system to figure out Lin's condition, but the mutation was too abnormal and the analysis failed. The monster system reported that the mutation's efficiency exceeded its ability to measure it. At the same time, Lin's own system warned that the mutation was spreading out of control. A gigantic tentacle emerged from the already massive Hellwalker, covered in corrupted heads. The witch was trapped and buried beneath them. The big eye of the Hellwalker was finally torn apart. Something fell from it, Lin's face. Both the monster's sanity and his own had dropped. The Hellwalker initiated a biological extermination process. It summoned a dragon to spit fire directly at Lin's head. But Lin had multiple heads now due to the mutation, and it was unclear if the attack would work. The Hellwalker now resembled a hellish dragon, and Lin had become a writhing mass of tentacles with his face. Inside the creature, more mutations were taking place. The witch was confused, unable to understand what was happening. She could only sense that Lin was being corrupted, transforming into something unrecognizable. The big eye kept trying to analyze the situation, but was finally breaking down. Lin's system reported that a creature inside was trying to consume the Hellwalker, undergoing a special level 9 mutation. A flash of light erupted inside the creature's eye. A special alert triggered. A mutant unit with a molecular reorganization system had appeared. Outside, the witch tried to communicate with Lin, but he only muttered strange sounds. She was alarmed, noticing his voice now sounded almost identical to her own evil voice. She guessed that a part of her must have merged with him while they were both being swallowed. Nearby, a mass of twisted flesh formed a huge eye. Lin's system warned that his body was failing. Body loss had reached 88%. The eye grew larger and more distorted. The witch realized that the puppet she had been controlling was dying. A hand emerged from the top of the large eye. Far away, a blood moon appeared over a clock tower. Inside, a cauldron bubbled as members of the Demon Association received a report. Flesh Golem Type 3 had suffered 98% body damage. One of them reported to their master that they had lost contact with Type 3 at Blood Peak. These enemies were part of the Demon Association, and the master was shocked. Type 3 was their most advanced demon hunter. In this world, nothing short of a root or king-level creature should have been able to defeat it. The master concluded that the rebels who refused to return to the association were far more dangerous than expected. Still, they had already killed many of them, empowered by blood saw blood. The master ordered them to locate Type 3's coordinates and send a predator. The witch managed to pull Lin out of the mass of flesh. Strangely, he looked clean and unharmed for someone who had been inside a creature. She thought it was unusual, but decided his rest was more important for now. However, a demonic tongue extended from his hand, evidence of lingering corruption. The system reported that Lin had completed an extremely difficult mission and reached level 10. Now he could begin a class change. Sometime later, he woke in a ruined bed, immediately recognizing it as the red-haired witch's bed. He wondered why he was there and if he had been swallowed by the creature. The witch appeared, relieved to see him awake. She confirmed she had survived too. She rushed to check on his condition, asking how he felt and whether anything was wrong. Lin stopped her, asking for an explanation. She told him 2 days had passed since the fight, but she would explain everything later. He asked if the Hellwalker was dead and whether all the evil energy had left its body. She gave him a seductive smile and said yes, thinking that someone strong enough to kill such a powerful enemy was special. She admitted she was growing more interested in him. Lin suspected the intense mutation might have pushed his body into an unconscious state. The mutation had been so strong it destroyed the Hellwalker from the inside. The questions now were, How had his body returned to normal? Where did the creature come from? And why was it so focused on killing him? He asked where the body was, and she said it was behind the house. She had waited there thinking it might hold secrets. Lin immediately wanted to examine it, hoping for a clue about his professor's fate. The remains of the Hell Walker were outside. Lin looked at them and asked if he had truly killed it. The witch confirmed he had, but reminded him the creature had been completely mutated, enough to scare even her. Lin suspected that if it was true, then the mutation's power was still inside his own body. The witch commented that there seemed to be something wrong with him, too much demonic energy in his shadow. The system informed him that he was locked at level 10 until he chose a new class. Lin asked the system to explain his mutation status, but instead it gave him a mission. By midday, he had to discover what had happened to his body and control the curse, or it would become irreversible. Frustrated, Lin complained that he wanted answers, not more missions. The system politely told him it was only delivering objectives. Lin apologized to the witch, saying he had urgent matters to deal with. He ran off. Then he returned briefly to grab the monster's body. After that, he left for home. Once home, he went to Sarah's library, remembering that he had books about mutations. After reading, he learned 4 important things. First, his body's mutation was still in its incubation stage, it wasn't complete. Second, the mutation acted independently of him. Third, it wasn't actually him who had killed the Hell Walker, it was the mutation. Fourth, he only woke from his coma because of the system, otherwise he wouldn't have woken at all. Lin remembered that one of his mission rewards was the body reorganization ability. He used it, hoping to locate the mutated part of himself. The ability truly rebuilt everything. He could see his entire body from the inside. He noted that he was becoming stronger, almost invincible. He thought to himself that sometimes the uglier something was, the stronger it became. His bones reformed. His cells realigned. He searched carefully for the source of the mutation. He wondered where the curse stored so much flesh, and why his form had grown so large. He spotted some poison nearby, and decided to try purging the corruption that way. He drank it in one gulp and collapsed to the floor, cursing the creature inside him. The system warned that his life was dropping, but also noted he had gained resistance to poison. He tried again, describing the poison as the most powerful insecticide he could create from memories of his own world. But when he looked at his hand, nothing had changed. Frustrated, he ran upstairs. He opened every bottle of poison. He dumped them all inside himself. The system warned he had sustained multiple injuries, and that his skin was melting. He shouted that pain meant nothing to him, determined to make the mutation suffer. He began brewing something dangerous in a jar, a plague potion and another that would weaken his defenses. His plan was simple: weaken himself, then drink the demon's poison. A sip of wine, a sip of poison. The system announced he was fully poisoned and that his life was dropping quickly. He had 20 minutes left to live. He took a healing potion, then another poison. His goal was to throw his body into chaos, forcing the mutation into distress. The system warned he had 15 minutes left. He pushed on, convinced that if this was a battle of endurance, he wouldn't lose. 20 minutes later, nothing had happened. He drank more poison. When nothing changed again, he grew more frustrated. He threw his materials down and started brewing an even worse concoction. The cauldron boiled, and inside it, shapes that looked like heads floated. He didn't hesitate, his expression twisted with madness as he consumed more of it. He called out for the mutation to appear. Something strange happened. The system marked it with a question mark, saying the mutation was afraid of him. Lin looked at his hand, a small form started to emerge. The system noted that the mutation's fear increased by 10. When the mutation tried to retreat back into his body, Lin drank more poison. Its fear increased by 15, then 20. The small arm began moving on its own, taking control of Lin's hand. Lin healed himself with a potion, while on the other side of his body, the mutation groaned that it had had enough. Its fear level climbed to 30. He kept spamming potions, alternating between poison and healing until the mutation was exhausted. It admitted it couldn't take the constant cycle anymore. Even though Lin himself was beginning to break down, he continued, saying he would take just one more dose. He fell to the ground, wondering if he had finally killed the creature. Crawling, he reached for another healing potion, opened it, and poured it into himself. When Lin opened his eyes again, he had gained a large amount of experience, especially resistance to poison. He also unlocked an achievement called Poison Cauldron, awarded for being poisoned 500 times in a short span. He remembered that a part of his body had been moving on its own during the ordeal, though he didn't know exactly which part. The small hand spoke up, saying it was relieved to be alive. The system identified the creature. A mutation born inside a human, created from a combination of a golem, a faceless demon's heart, fragments of an evil spirit, parts of a witch, and remains of a human. Lin stared in disbelief. The mutation truly contained everything. He reached for more poison, but the small hand shouted for him to stop. Lin realized the reason he could no longer drink poison was because the larger mutation was fighting to overpower him. The mutation mocked him, saying a weak human should be controlled, not the other way around. The two struggled. Lin punched the small hand, but hitting it caused damage to himself. The hand tried to lick him, so he bit its tongue. He ran with it into the operating room, trying to restrain it. He raised a blade over the hand, but the mutation managed to block the strike with a smaller blade of its own. Lin told it he just wanted to give it a cut so he could place it in medicine, and transform it into something useful. The fight continued, blade against blade, until Lin dropped his weapon. The hand took the chance to strike his thigh, but Lin managed to hold on. He noticed a potion nearby, one of the strongest kinds, and reached for it. The mutation taunted him, saying he would never get the chance to drink it. Lin activated his Flesh Cataclysm ability, creating a twisted hand that pulled the potion back and poured it onto the mutation. The small hand weakened, and Lin breathed a sigh of relief. But the potion's poison was stronger than he had expected. The system warned he was mildly poisoned, then heavily poisoned, then severely poisoned. Lin began vomiting violently, while the mutation laughed that even poisoning it would not be enough. The creature from the basement stirred when something fell, remnants of the devil's poison. It tasted it and seemed to enjoy it. Meanwhile, Lin was still vomiting from the effects of his own experiments. Even the basement creature seemed irritated, wondering if Lin was trying to poison it on purpose. The devil's hand took the opportunity to recover its strength, promising that once it was finished vomiting, it would kill Lin. Lin collapsed to the ground, suggesting they call a truce. He said that after a short break he would cut the hand off. The devil's hand agreed for now, saying it wasn't feeling hungry. Lin proposed they live in peace. The hand agreed, even making a pinky promise. Lin reasoned that there was no point in fighting constantly. They were both losing out. Having two consciences in one body, he said, could work fine if they cooperated. But within moments, they were trying to kill each other again. Despite the ongoing fight, Lin returned to the shop. He muttered that if there wasn't a customer to deal with, he would cut the hand off right away. There was a knock at the door. When he opened it, he found a muscular goat-headed creature from the alien race. It was level 69, with powerful close combat abilities. Lin greeted the visitor, explaining that he was in charge of the pharmacy while the boss was away. The goat looked uneasy. Lin's intense stare and the sound of knives banging together didn't help. The goat explained that he was a traveler from a distant land who was feeling unwell. He had passed by the shop and wanted to see if the doctor could examine him. Lin assured him he was the perfect person for the job. He could cure anything without medicine. The devil's hand tried to attack again, and Lin snapped at it to stop, reminding it there was a customer. The goat looked confused, sensing something strange, and decided maybe it wasn't a good time. He started to leave, but Lin insisted he come inside. The goat hesitated, glancing at the destruction inside the shop. It looked like a battlefield. Lin claimed it was just renovations, joking that there hadn't been any life-or-death fights there. The goat saw deep cuts in the furniture and grew more suspicious. Lin, meanwhile, was in the back sharpening a blade. Feeling uneasy, the goat said he had to step outside to re-enter with his right foot for good luck. Lin questioned him, asking if he planned to leave. The goat nervously replied that the customer is always right. But Lin muttered that if the goat left, he would have to be cut down. The goat's panic grew. If he stayed, Lin might cut him. If he left, Lin might also cut him. His sanity dropped. The goat sweated nervously, wondering why the shop owner was so frightening. He asked Lin why he was wielding two knives. Was he practicing combat? Lin said it wasn't combat practice. He was trying to cut off his own left hand. The goat was startled and asked why. Lin explained that the hand wasn't good. It had a habit of eating people. If he didn't cut it off, it might even eat his customers. The goat was horrified, suspecting Lin was planning to kill him and blame it on the hand. The goat tried to leave again, but Lin insisted he wasn't busy anymore and was ready to begin a diagnosis. The goat became even more anxious. Lin spoke to his own hand, threatening to call his neighbor to finish it off if necessary. The goat misunderstood, thinking Lin was warning him directly. Deciding he had to defend himself, the goat prepared to attack. But just as Lin said he was ready to cut, he suddenly produced a stethoscope instead. He calmly asked what the goat's problem was. The goat, trembling, replied quietly that there was nothing wrong. Lin listened to the goat's heartbeat while restraining his own left hand. The goat asked if there was anything wrong with him, suspecting the doctor was secretly thinking about how to cut and roast him. Lin said the goat's heartbeat was irregular and asked if he had been in a severe fight recently. The goat admitted he might have been, but thought Lin was just fishing for an excuse. Lin observed signs of poisoning, dark spots on the goat's skin, purple lips, and sunken eyes. He warned that if the goat experienced fear, the rapid circulation could spread the poison and kill him. The goat grew alarmed. Lin asked if he had been attacked recently. The goat explained he hadn't been attacked but had been in a swamp and dragged his arm near some vines. He had simply bandaged it, assuming it wasn't serious. The system identified the poison as coming from a plant called the human-faced vine. Lin explained that it was a toxic plant that waited for prey to pass by before striking. Its poison took time to activate, so it wasn't fatal unless the victim encountered certain situations. The goat asked what situations. Lin replied that fear and a racing heartbeat would make it worse. The goat tried to appear calm, insisting he was fine. Lin warned that if the poison started to spread, it would release a scent that would attract creatures wanting to devour him. Luckily, the pharmacy was a safe place with no dangerous creatures. However, Lin added that if the poison circulated for more than a minute, it could be fatal. Before removing the poison, recovery medicine and water would help. Before Lin could finish, the goat had already taken out a knife and drained blood from his arm. Lin asked why he was so eager to be free of the poison. And if you enjoyed the story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss new ones.